Meeting this September 19th, 2023. I appreciate everyone being here today, and I think Commissioner Sturman will be with us shortly. Why don't we begin with our communications to the City Commission? It seems to be a request from the Historic Preservation Board. Is anyone here from the Historic Preservation Board? Can one of you come up to the podium and we can have our conversation? Hi there.
There we go. Good afternoon. Richard Rosa, Vice Chair of the Historical Preservation Board.
Thank you, Richard, for being here today. Tell us a little bit about what you're looking for today.
So in our last meeting, we wanted to make this communication, just verbalize our motion to put additional members on the board. We're currently sitting assembled as 6, and we had a circumstance in which an applicant was unable to have their application reviewed because there was one recusal. So at this point, we'd like the commission to do everything in their power to appoint a couple more people to the board.
Okay, so I'm afraid to ask you this question.
Sure.
But which member of this commission still has a vacancy to appoint somebody?
I wish I could answer it. I don't know.
So, Mayor, it has come to my attention that I am one of those delinquent parties. I did not realize that, but I have somebody in mind now who I will be meeting with, having lunch with next week that I intend to bring forward. So I will hopefully get somebody on for the next commission meeting to approve them.
Fantastic.
Okay, there's one.
But there's 2 more, right?
Yeah. Is it yours? Okay, so so that's 2.
I'll be working on it. I've had some challenges overall with appointing members to certain committees.
Sure.
We are addressing them, but doing our due diligence to get individuals who are available and will be committed.
We're available and suitable, you know.
Yeah, available, suitable, and committed.
Right. Okay. We'll do our best.
Thank you.
But we appreciate all the work that you folks do. I know there's a lot of work that goes into each application that's submitted to you, and I know that it's oftentimes you have a lot of let's just say pros and cons, different things you have to try to weigh in order to come up with the right solution. We appreciate the amount of work you put into it, especially in our historic district in Sailboat Bend. We know how difficult it is to make choices, and thank you for all the good work that you do bring to our commission.
We appreciate you saying that. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mayor, if I could just ask David, there's 3 openings, right? But is it 3 among 2 commissioners, or is...
No, Commissioner Sturman also has 1 vacancy.
Commissioner Sturman has one also?
Okay. Yes. Commissioner Sturman, you, Commissioner Herbst, and the Vice Mayor each have 1 person you need to appoint to the Historic Preservation Board. If you could remember to try to do that.
No, we have already identified a couple candidates. So now we're going to be the date that your deadline for me to make the next meetings when?
Next week and the next week. So
we have a few names that we've already recruited, so we should have somebody by then.
Okay, great. Okay. Great.
Thanks again.
Okay, moving on to CF1, the audit of vehicle and cell phone allowances. Mr. City Manager. The City Auditor. Okay,
yeah,
City Auditor. Where is he?
City Auditor.
Oh, there he is.
Pat Riley, City Auditor. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Our office performed an audit of vehicle and cell phone allowance. Specifically, we examined the internal controls over the vehicle and cell phone allowances for compliance with policy and standards manual. This audit was a part of our annual audit plan for this year. The primary objective of this audit was to determine whether duplicate fringe benefits were provided to city employees relating to vehicle or cell phones, such that the city is providing a vehicle and or cell phone and also paying a cell phone and or vehicle allowance. The City Auditor's Office found that internal controls for the city's vehicle and cell phone allowance benefits payments need to be enhanced and monitored more closely. Scope and methodology of our audit included a reconciliation of 100% of the employees receiving a vehicle or cell phone allowance during the audit period of fiscal years 2020 and through 2022 and related internal controls. The audit methodology included but not limited to performing detailed testing of selected activities, reviewing records and reports, performing walkthroughs, and conducting a review of the controls. Some background information. The city, by policy and standards manual, offers personal fringe benefits in relation to cell phones and vehicles as either use of city-owned property or pay an allowance that offsets the cost of business use of personal property. All policies prohibit employees from receiving double benefit of both a vehicle or cell phone and also receiving a pay allowance. As of January 2022, Finance Department recognized the need to prevent payment of cell phone allowances for city employees designated to receive a city cell phone. For this objective, the city designed and implemented a control process that would pre-verify any existing cell phone allowances before any phones would be issued. This process had a couple of hiccups in it, but the key thing is to get that thing in a more formal policy and standards manual. Additionally, departments assigning high volume of take-home vehicles have their own respective policies to control these vehicles with the city's personally assigned vehicle benefits program, which generally requires some individuals to pay a certain amount each month as covering the commuting portion of the use of the city's vehicle. Take-home vehicles are purchased by Fleet, which a division of the Public Works Department, but assigned, and the vehicles are assigned and controlled by various departments that are issued the cars. The cell phones and plans are purchased and issued by Information Technology Services. Benefits are controlled by the Human Resource Department and are paid through the Payroll Department. Annual average city spending on vehicle and cell phone allowances during the audit period was approximately $1.3 million and $525,000 respectively. Fleet primarily uses a GPS-enabled software system to physically control and monitor city vehicles inventory. As of the first quarter of fiscal year 2023, approximately 1,450 city vehicles had a GPS system installed, which represents about 83% of the inventory, Fleet's inventory. During the audit period, approximately 725 employees drove city take-home vehicles. The city's total vehicle inventory is valued at approximately $120 million. Our office has identified 3 audit findings. The first one, in some instances, employees were receiving a cell phone allowance and issued a city cell phone. Through our substantive testings of 100% of the cell phone allowance and the city cell phone that were issued, during the fiscal years 20 through 22, which was our audit period, 1,009 employees had a cell phone allowance. Our office found 38 exceptions totaling approximately $19,000 of cell phone allowances being paid to employees while also having a city cell phone. Basically, our recommendation, we discussed this with management, is that we need to make a stronger policies and make sure that going forward there's no overlapping of cell phone allowance and city cell phones issued, so they're promptly canceled if those situations occur. The second finding related to the internal control process and policy standards manual for city take-home vehicles need to be updated and adhered to. Internal controls pertaining to the city take-home vehicles are not complete, comprehensive, nor centrally administered. Regarding completeness, the policies and standards manual and departmental policies are missing formalized control activities concerning the detection of overlapping vehicle allowance payments and assigned take-home vehicles. Regarding unauthorized take-home city vehicles, a separate policy 8.1 acknowledges that GPS tracking systems installed in the city vehicles, but delegates its use to department directors without a lot of oversight. A few of the departmental vehicle policies, but none of these policies require a detailed use of the GPS system. Performance and or monitoring of control activities regarding vehicle allowance and take-home vehicles is largely decentralized. Without independent oversight, which does not ensure that each department is adhering to the control process or performing controls activities consistently. During the audit of the vehicles, we did identify 2 employees that had both a vehicle allowance and were issued a take-home vehicle. Some other errors as far as looking to see who was authorized to have a take-home vehicle, we determined that each of the departments in many cases didn't have that information, but we did determine that payroll keeps those initial authorization forms that are on hard copy only held at the payroll department. We also looked at some 70 vehicles with high mileage selected for review, and we noted that 3 of them did not have a GPS device installed, preventing the audit from determining whether the vehicle had been taken home without authorization or having any overlapping vehicle allowance. As a subsequent event, the GPS devices were installed in those vehicles. Again, our office recommends that the city manager revisit the city vehicle usage process and work in conjunction with the respective city departments to update, enhance, and possibly centralize the administration of the policy and standards manual. Finding number 3, a physical inventory of city vehicles have not been performed per state regulation and policy and standards manual. An independent physical inventory of the city vehicles has not been conducted for almost 10 years. Regarding the physical count aspect of inventory process, for several years, Fleet has the GPS, which is a very useful tool in inventorying and counting because it ties in the VIN number of the vehicles and can identify the location of all the vehicles. The Florida Administrative Code does, though, require that a physical inventory should ensure that a physical inventory is taken annually whenever there is a change in custodian or change of custodian's delegation. And basically, any assets $5,000 in value in a projected useful life of 1 year are considered inventory assets for the city. We do have policies relating to the inventories requirement in our policies and standards manual. The finance, I have to say, the finance department has resources are limited that they do perform somewhat of a sample basis inventory count on an annual basis. However, the inventory and count process is not considered sufficient to satisfy the Florida Administrative Code. Without consistent reconciliation of independent records between Fleet and Finance, the financial statements could be understated or overstated with respect to additions, deletions, or obsolete inventory. Our office recommends that Fleet and Finance collaborate annually on a vehicle inventory to ensure assets are safeguarded and financial reporting is complete and accurate. Currently, there are 1,505 city vehicles, which 83% of them have GPS equipment installed. There's 255 vehicles that don't, and speaking with management, we were looking to see if we can make sure that we have 100% of the vehicles with the GPS capability. The value of those 255 that don't have it is approximately $7 million. And we did have one observation, really going back to providing additional recommendations to include departments with the pre-verification for situations when there's allowances and someone wants a phone or is going to be issued a phone. So the main thing there was independent review of cell phone and user allowances and inventory by departments. So we feel that the departments need to help, since they're issued the cell phones, that they have the better eye as to who has phones and who has allowances from their information, so that can help the elimination of having any kind of duplicate benefits provided. I do want to thank all the departments that helped us and provided information for the audit in the city manager's office, and that completes my report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address them now.
Great, thank you so much. I have a quick question. Was there, with regard to the findings that you identified in your report, was there any one department that where those findings were had accrued, or is it across the board?
Well, for the cell phones, it was across the board, but for the vehicles, I think there's 5 or 6 departments that have the vehicles only.
So the ones that were violating the policy, were they in any one department or?
No.
Okay. All right. Anyone have any questions?
Mayor, I'd just like to ask Mr. Riley, first of all, thank you for the report. Are you satisfied with all of the management responses that were given in terms of the recommendations and observations that your office produced?
Yes, we met with all the departments that had some play in the audit, and with the city manager's office too. And yes, I think their responses are good.
Thank you. That's it from me, Mayor. Thank you.
There being none, thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
CF2, budgeted city-sponsored events for the first quarter of fiscal year 2024. Is that Mr. City Manager or
Yes.
Mr. Thornburg?
So, as you all requested, the City Commission requested to provide an update as to the events prior to them happening. So this is that report before the quarter starts, all the line-up events and their costs.
Okay, that's on the exhibit. Anyone have any questions with regard to that?
I have a comment.
Go right ahead.
I mean, this is at the end. As you're looking forward for events going forward in the city, and this isn't for the quarter, but this is, I just want to give you a heads up. I am going to throw something out there, Pam, Commissioner Beasley, and City Manager. One of the issues come up is kind of territorial. This is my district. This is his district, and then there's some citywide events that belong to the city but seem to always be going on the east side. That the perception is that some of the west side don't have access to. For 4th of July, I'm going to throw this out for everybody to think about. 4th of July, would you consider breaking it in half and having, I know they have it on the barge, but maybe having Mills Pond and other fireworks display out on the west side for people who are not inclined to go east? Is that something that we would entertain?
I think it's a safety issue, isn't it? That's why they do it over the water.
But I think in past we used to have it inland. And some cities are landlocked. They do have it inland. Is it something we could even explore?
I don't know. I mean, you want to
You're
split
asking
the
about-
budget? You want to split the budget for 4th of July? So if there's like, I don't know what, it's not on here right now.
No, it's not. I'm
But if you
getting
have
way ahead of time.
$100,000, say for 4th of July, you want $50,000 to be spent.
Well, I don't know the exact split. I'm not saying what to do. Just explore the possibility of having a presence on the west side too, because that's a lot of people coming on the east side. So maybe we could, Mills Pond or something in that nature. Is it something we have an appetite for?
You want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm listening to what my colleague is saying. I'm not sure, what stemmed the conversation with desiring to split a holiday with the city. My advocacy has been more so of funding also those events that are citywide, not just deciding that they don't get proper funding. I had not considered splitting the monies for the 4th of July. I haven't had a conversation with any of the neighbors who talk with me to say that they prefer versus the beach versus the east side for the 4th of July. I think everybody that I have had conversations with, we do enjoy going to the beach, enjoying seeing the 4th of July event. like I said, I'm not sure. That's not something that I had considered.
Maybe that's not the event to.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Because
that-
what my whole advocacy is, and I say that every time I get an opportunity to talk about the events that that are seated in District 3, which are citywide events, proper funding, and then everybody know that everyone is invited to the events. We want to see everyone come out, see everyone come and have a good time, and let those events also have that signature stamp that the city of Fort Lauderdale puts on so many events that are on the east side. That's my advocacy.
Well, thank you so much, Pam.
Okey-doke. Moving on to Business 1. This is an update on the Prospect Lake Clean Water Center.
Yes, we have a project company and Director Dodd. They're going to present an update on the project.
Great.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Mark Janae from the project company will give the presentation, and then him and city staff will be prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. It's great to be back. I know it's been a while since we've addressed the commission, and happy to be here today to talk about all the progress on the project. You know, I'll actually start kind of with what's on this title screen here. So that is a kind of an accurate, updated rendering based on the modeling and the design work that's already been advanced to date. And so, you know, again, I think it's reflective of a lot of the work that has gone into the project to date, both in the design, in the permitting, and the procurement, and the team as a whole. And I'll address that next.
We don't have this as a backup, right? For some reason, it didn't appear on my.
This was sent, I believe, via email.
I don't have an Exhibit 1. It was in an email? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't get that either.
Right.
It's not on the agenda, Pat.
So is it available for the public?
I believe it is, Commissioner. I thought
It doesn't matter. You have it here.
Well,
It's fine.
no. Mayor, this is very important because the community needs to be able to see this too. So is this available for the public to go and view it?
We're going to make sure
yes.
it's added to the online version.
I think if you click on the agenda and then you scroll down, there's like a link.
No, it is not.
No, it's for some reason
My
it's not
colleague
there.
found
There might be an
earlier.
email, but it's not attached to the agenda item.
All right. Well, please proceed.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, just to begin, some key milestones on the project. You know, again, we in the comprehensive agreement, which is the governing document for the public-private partnership, there were some sort of pre-agreed to change orders. One of those has already been completed. The larger one, that there was a lot of discussion around having a cap to that, and that change order was completed under that cap. The other one is in process, and then there are a couple others that, you know, we're actively completing, working with the team on. I also certainly wanted to note just the amount of sort of ongoing collaboration, communication with the city, and with their representative at Hazen and Sawyer. I certainly want to compliment Daniel Fisher, the entire Hazen and Sawyer team. You know, they've really, this has been a very collaborative process. You know, it hasn't been holding, you know, a line or you know, digging our heels in. We've really worked to achieve, you know, consensus when we've needed to. So again, I really want to extend my appreciation to the team and all the hard work that's gone into it. So just kind of quickly running through, I won't sort of read these, but you know, we continue to advance, you know, all the design elements. Many of those packages, not only it's a very fluid process. Some packages are being advanced sooner than others. A lot of that ties back to certain permits that need to be applied for and/or procurement activities that need to follow. But everything is continuing to advance on track, on schedule. We would anticipate all packages being done by the first part of next year. With respect to permitting, again, a number of in parallel activities. These are just a list of the ongoing applications that have already been filed. In addition, there's been a lot of work around getting an approval for what's being referred to as a critical infrastructure agreement. My understanding is that's an agreement. The new police station. I think there was a similar path taken where both the county and the city, provide this agreement such that some of the platting and surveying requirements for the site, we can continue to move forward with the project without needing those fully completed. And that's really, it doesn't impact the project at all. It's really more of an administrative thing. But again, my understanding is that actually by this month, we should have that agreement in place. So there's been really good communication and again, collaboration and alignment with both the county and DRC on advancing that agreement. On procurement, again, a number of activities. Most of these align with sort of critical path items, getting piping packages out, getting valve packages out, getting some of the major electrical packages out. Those all could become critical path items if we weren't already taking those necessary steps on procurement. So again, this is just a small list of some of those key packages that are already actively in the procurement strategy. And with PFAS, as everyone knows, the EPA earlier this year released their draft regulation on PFAS. So one of the first activities that we were directed to do, and rightly so, was to sample and get an idea of what the background PFAS levels are. We're now actively, working with the city team in Hazen to develop a preliminary report on kind of looking at what we should do, what next steps, and certainly one of those steps will be to honestly just to continue to do some additional testing, do some pilot work so we can better understand just that even our current design and our current plant can in fact potentially treat for the PFAS. But we need to continue advancing some of those tests.
Sure. What is it? What preliminary? What does it look like? What is our baseline PFAS?
So the average of the kind of the key PFAS constituent, Dr. Sturman, is around 18 parts per trillion. Again, the MCL, the maximum contaminant level, is 4, and so we're already, even with that level, and again, there's a lot of speculation still as to whether or not the MCL, the maximum contaminant level, will stay at 4 or where it may come up, because our maximum, there's one well that had a reading of 53, and while that certainly sounds high compared to the average, there are instances even in South Florida, certainly around the country, where there are readings of thousands of parts per trillion. So by comparison, the well field appears to be in very good shape. Not too surprising that one well that does have the higher level is closest to, or in the proximity of, I shouldn't necessarily say it's closest to, the executive airport. And the reason there's been a lot of evidence that airports or in the vicinity of airports have higher levels because of the fire suppressing foam that's used. A lot of that foam has high levels of PFAS in it. But again, we're going to continue to do some additional testing. We just were given the formal approval to do another few months of testing, so we'll see where that goes. This next slide is just sort of an aerial shot of the project site. This is a Prospect Lake in the top left. It's a little difficult to see, but the darker shaded, that's actually I would say that same rendering. It's an aerial view of it. So that's really where the project site's going to be. It's up in that top northwest corner. It's there primarily because we needed to, push it out of the flyway for FAA requirements. And as part of that, we also wanted to be sure that a couple of the main buildings were, not exceeding those height restrictions, and that has the added bonus of kind of staying at or below the tree line out there. And what you see on the rest of this photo is just some of the other areas that we'll be utilizing as we start the construction process. Lay down areas for trailers, for parking. There'll be at times up to 200 or 300 staff out there at any given day. So just a quick update on just upcoming activities. As you see, there's as we get into the fourth quarter, there is going to be a lot of actual work beginning to happen. I mean, earth being moved, certain trees being removed, and actually, I think it's probably worth flagging that because of that sort of real activity, it may be the right time to start thinking about scheduling a groundbreaking, because there'll be trailers and heavy machinery and grading going on. So I certainly we can be prepared to help facilitate and work with the city at whatever date works best for the commission. But I certainly think that by latter part of October, early November or later, that would be potentially a good time. So I think that's all for that update.
Okay, I have a few questions, but first, Vice Mayor, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
I do. I'm sorry. If we could go back to slide number 6. In the paragraph that says next steps, that last bullet giving reference to funding, it says and/or third-party funding may be available for treatment. Who are those third parties?
Sure. So a perfect example, Commissioner, the city of Stuart, Florida, earlier this year received, I believe it was $100 million from 3M. So there are two companies, 3M and DuPont, that there are a number of ongoing class action suits that have been filed because of, their chemicals typically being the ones, the fire suppressants, the waterproofing, the nonstick pans. And so as an example, and there are other examples certainly throughout the country, but that's what I was referring to, okay. Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So it's my understanding that we had been plaintiffs in that lawsuit, right?
I can't speak to that, Mayor.
So I'm thinking at some point it'll be a part of our conversation, but I understand as plaintiffs we are too being awarded something under that claim against the manufacturers. Okay. Commissioner Herbst, this is your district. Do you have any questions?
Not yet. Are we completely done with our presentation?
Yes.
Yes. There's no other issues we need to be talking about this time?
None that I at least had part of this update, Commissioner.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you want to talk about the berm?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think what we would like to get is Director Dodd to just talk about the enabling works and something that is going to complement this project. I think if we can get that update. Alan?
There's another big piece here that I want to have some dialogue on.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, as you know, we do have around $181 million worth of enabling works, projects that we are required to construct or to work with the project company to construct in order to connect it to our existing system. So we have already gone out, done a solicitation to get a consultant to help us to do the design criteria packages to move those projects forward. We have been meeting with FP&L to provide those, the substation and the connections for the project. And we are on schedule with all of those portions of the work. As far as the 48-inch treatment line, we did receive an unsolicited proposal to provide that infrastructure. We are still evaluating it, and we may be bringing it to you at a future meeting.
I'm sorry, Colonel. Could you speak a little closer to the mic? You're a little low in volume.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So I said that we did receive an unsolicited proposal to construct the 48-inch water distribution line that connects Prospect Lake Clean Water Center to 5 Ash. We received that. We're evaluating it, and we may be bringing that to you at a future meeting for consideration. We have not finalized our review to say that it's ready to be brought to you at this time.
So with that, when we first approved the entire agreement, the presumption was that we would be going out to bid on the enabling works.
That is correct.
That is correct. So what would be changing our sort of perspective on that at this point?
Well, again, it was an unsolicited proposal not something that we went out for. We were on the path to do a design build for it. However, we received it. We are evaluating it. What it does do is it cuts out on the time for solicitation. You know, we would have to build a design criteria package, then go out for a second solicitation in order to award a contract to construct the pipeline. So that would save us about a year in overall time. And then we have to look at the, when we do evaluate it, if it is accepted by the commission, we'd have to evaluate it for technical acceptability and the pricing to decide if it's in the best interest of the city to move forward with the P3 or continue on our current path of a standard design build solicitation and construction project.
So understanding that, why wasn't this part of the initial agreement? Knowing that we were going to be building the enabling works, why is this bifurcated in this fashion?
So when, Commissioner, when we brought this project forward, we clearly delineated what was part of the proposal from IDE Ridgewood, which was the $485 million project, and what other works would be required in order to connect it into our system, which became the enabling works. And that was developed over a course of several months to separate those two. And that's how we've been managing the project since then.
Right, but understanding what you just said, though, that having one developer do the entire project, why was that not part of the original plan? If that's going to save us a year of time and presumably substantial cost, why wasn't that done from the onset? That's what I don't understand. I don't understand why we started out with this as a bifurcated project, and now we're realizing that it makes more sense to do it as one project. Did we not know it would make more sense to do it as one project up front?
I would agree that it would be, but this is a very large, complex project. There are things that were within the unsolicited proposal we received to construct a plant, and then there are things that were not part of that we identified as part of the process that would still be necessary. And so they were not part of their proposal. We only negotiated the comprehensive agreement with them for what was basically inside the box. Those other things that are required, we identified as enabling works, and it was developed with the intent that the city would procure and construct those, or work with the project company depending on what the scope of the work was at that time.
So our typical process for P3s is to put them out and allow other potential bidders to bid on it. So in the interest of ensuring that we truly have competition, how does that work when we've got one entity that appears to have an inside track on this? And is it really competition? So when we move forward with, this is the problem with all P3s. Okay, and this is why I take a dim view of them in general, is because they really rarely afford anybody else an opportunity to effectively compete, because the person who's submitting the unsolicited proposal has had a year to work on it, and whoever else comes in doesn't have the advantage of all that time. They're throwing together a bid in a rather hasty fashion against somebody who has been able to develop substantially more information and is in a position to win. I've never seen one P3 where the original submittal doesn't win. And what that tells me is that the deck is stacked against anybody else that wants to compete for public dollars and should have a right to access public dollars. And so I'm going to tell you that every time one of these comes forward, we did it at the Aquanic Center, and I wasn't happy with that. We're doing it with this one, so I'm just going to let you know that I'm going to take a dim view of this every time something like this happens, because it seems to me that, not intention of staff, don't take this the wrong way, this is not at you, but this process is not designed to foster competition. It's designed to deliver more work to whoever the initial winning bidder was on the first job. So I understand all the reasons behind it. Trust me, I get it. But I'm just telling you that I don't think this is an appropriate way for us to do business, because I don't think it fairly allocates out tax revenue to all the interested businesses that would like to have an opportunity and deserve an opportunity to compete for that. It's not a fair competitive playing field. So now, leaving all that aside, as the mayor was starting to allude to. Let's talk about the impact this is going to have on my district. You know, the folks in Palm Air Village, the loss of Palm Air, Twin Lakes. So what are we doing to deal with the noise and dust and, you know, impact on their quality of life? We had talked about berms. There's an issue with trees. So let's talk a little bit about what this is going to mean for my neighborhoods for the next couple of years and what we're doing to minimize that impact. Thank you.
Yes, so Commissioner, there's really two parts that we need to talk about. The first part is the noise, and as part of the construction, as part of their permitting, they will have to abide by city ordinances dealing with noise and any type of construction at nighttime. The standard practices that we have for any project. More importantly, though, I think is long-term noise. And we did ask them to go back and look at the equipment and what the noise impacts will be to make sure that when it is operating, it will be below the thresholds to be next to a residential area. And I don't know, Chris, if you remember the numbers from, we had that discussion many, many months ago, but it absolutely will meet those requirements.
Well, I think, so one of the things we look at, and I don't know if your noise standards contemplate this, the difference between this and other things is that we've got two components of this, right? The construction noise,
right,
which is not insignificant, and then we have operational noise. And the problem with operational noise is this is going to be a 24-hour-a-day operation. So it's one thing to have, you know, something rise to a certain level and then it goes away. This never goes away. So this is that constant background noise. You know, I used to live on the flight path of LaGuardia Airport, and the planes come over every 10 seconds. It never stops. So good luck trying to watch TV or do much of anything else in your house when you're on that flight path. And we're going to have a very similar situation here of neighbors that are going to have the background hum of an industrial operation going on constantly as they try and sit out in their backyards and, you know, enjoy an evening and a barbecue or what have you. So I'd like to have a little bit more discussion about that. If not now, then maybe down the road. I don't want to put you on the spot for an answer that you may not have, but I do certainly want us to be thinking about this going forward. And again, you know, if there's berms, if there's, you know, landscaping, whatever we can do that's going to have the ability to, you know, create a sound barrier for some of that is something that I really want us to spend a lot more time looking at. Thank you.
Got it. So I think it's important to have an operational noise mitigation plan for the life cycle of this plant.
So just, and happy to come back and even provide, because I don't know what the numbers are, Commissioner and City Manager, but part of the noise attenuation plan is they go out and measure the background noise, not just at 5 o'clock, but to your point, at midnight, at 3 a.m. And they don't do it just once. It's an ongoing, such that the requirement is that the operational aspects will not be any louder, you know, at your, you know, at those neighbors' property lines than what's there currently.
Right. Well, and that's very significant. You know, one of the ongoing issues we have in those neighborhoods is airport noise. And I'm at least able to say, if you look at the pictures of the airport back in 1946, 47, it's the only thing out there. So the airport predates everything else. Everybody's house was built long after the airport was built. That doesn't necessarily make them feel a whole lot better about that, but at least they recognize they moved next to an airport. Right. And that noise is intended upon being in that proximity. In this case, the water plant moved to them.
Sure.
They didn't move next to the plant. The plant chased them down.
Right.
So I have a lot more empathy for what they're going to be experiencing on this, and that puts an extra burden on us to make sure we mitigate that to the greatest extent possible. But I think you've heard the message. So
and on that point, too, it certainly recognizing that I believe that the airport even has, like, you can't land planes at, I mean, unless there's an emergency or something. We're not measuring because of, you know, a jet just landed at 2 a.m. It's assuming, look, the airport's closed like it's supposed to be. It's that background. So,
sure. Mayor,
yes,
I just wanted to make a comment because I don't want the public to think that this P3 process is something that we created as a city and we did something really bad here. City Attorney, didn't the P3 process get laid out and passed by the state legislature?
Yes, sir. It's section 255.065 of the Florida statutes.
So we didn't create this process? No.
Correct. The city.
Are we allowed to just not accept the process? Are we allowed to say to the state or to anyone that gives us an unsolicited proposal, P3, sorry, we're just not doing this anymore? Is that kosher?
You can make a determination on each individual project that comes before you, but there is a process under the statute for accepting and evaluating the proposals as they come in.
And don't we do that?
We do.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Commissioner, since you raised it, as a matter of fact, yes, we have actually rejected P3 proposals that actually the city manager felt was not in the best interest of the city. So we don't have to accept everyone that comes up. We don't even have to consider it as a commission. So if something comes forward that is egregious, the city manager has a discretion as to whether he even wants to accept that $25,000 check. He may just say, no, it makes no sense for us. So yes, we can do that, and we have.
Yes, no, I understand that, and I'm aware of all of that. I'm just saying that I just thought that the public might have believed that this was a process that we created and that we initiated and that we've worked through, but I want the public to understand that this is a state process that was passed in Tallahassee, and we are just merely following that process. Of course, we can reject, but it's not a process that we created. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Commissioner Sturman, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Okay.
I do have one.
Oh, go ahead.
I know it's not in here, but just how's the timeline for the whole? People ask me this for the whole project as a whole. I see it through January of next year, but what completion of the whole project? When do you think it might be online?
So that kind of per the comprehensive agreement, Commissioner, September of 2026 is the official. There'll be commissioning. There'll even be water deliveries ahead of that, but that's the formal commercial operation date.
And we're still on schedule to meet that.
100%.
Okay, great.
So, don't go away. So, getting back to the discussion regarding impact on the neighborhood, going forward, this is going to be very important to all of us because we have made promises to the community around there that while the plant is going to be built there, it would not interfere with their quality of life. So, suggestions have been made for visual obstruction to try to build like berms around it, just to use it as an example, and they were rejected. According to certain neighborhood leaders, that when it was first proposed, that it wasn't part of the budget, and therefore it's not going to be included. I just want to put it out there that we need to continue to always try to mitigate the neighborhood impact, whether it be visual pollution, whether it be noise pollution, or whether it be any other kind of interference with quality of life. We need to respect the area in which this is being located. My understanding from previous conversations that we had, that the noise pollution would probably not be a problem because while it may generate an operational noise, the distance between the source and the neighbor would be such that it would just dissipate by the time it got to a homeowner, which theoretically sounds nice, but I guess we just have to make sure that we can measure that and that it doesn't impact the community.
And Mayor, that continues to be kind of part of the operational protocol. Like it continues to get measured. We won't just measure it like on the Monday, first day of operation. It will continually be monitored, and certainly if at any point in time we need to consider additional mitigation, trees, something that blocks the sound. Again, as you stated, between the trees, the distance where some of the buildings are already, and the type of equipment that we're putting in the buildings, the understanding now is that will be mitigated, but we'll continue to absolutely track that.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else have any further questions? There being none, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Director Dodd. Thank you. Moving on to business 2. Metro Transportation Engineering and Construction Cooperative Membership Presentation. Who's here to bring that before us?
So we're going to have Ben Rogers and also the MTECC.
The MTECC?
Members, they're going to they're going to come and introduce a new service that can help us streamline federal grant opportunities.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commission. Ben Rogers, Director of Transportation Mobility. Long walk for a short intro. So today we got MTech with us. We're looking at bringing an agreement forth for Commission consideration in October to join this cooperative. And so with us today is Mr. Lowell Clary from MTCC to talk a little bit about the program and the products they provide.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the Commission. I'm Lowell Clary, the Executive Director of MTech, and I'm going to go through a short presentation. I have 3 slides at the beginning which essentially say MTech does not pick projects. Okay, those go through the MPO process like they normally do. This slide is actually very interesting. Everything in red on this slide is eligible for federal funding. So these are all roads that are federally eligible for funding through the MPO, USDOT, etc., that could be available for funding. And those are a lot of the projects that you see come forward through CSLIP and other activities that may happen. These projects go through the prioritization process of the MPO. Once those projects are through that process, then MTech can come into the process. So why would you actually consider MTech? MTech was created essentially by the cities in Broward County to solve a particular need. And that need started when FDOT District 4 used to deliver these projects, but they lost resources. So in essence, they have delegated those projects now to the cities, and in many cases, the cities might get one federal project this year, one 4 years later, etc. And to have that expertise to implement those federal projects takes a lot of resources to accomplish that. The entity was created under Chapter 163, interlocal agency. It is a local government created by the cities. It has centralized engineering expertise that can do the particular design, bid package preparation, oversight and inspection, and also public involvement for implementing the project. Doesn't pick them, it implements the projects. It's designed to be efficient and timely project delivery. It's really up to the city to use those services or not. MTech has a self-governing board, and it is self-funding through the grants that come in for the projects and contributions from the cities for a small amount each year to cover what we call overhead cost. We have limited staff that are primarily consultant driven. These are the founding cities, Hollywood, Pompano Beach, and Plantation. These also serve as the board members at this point. Elected officials from each of those cities sit as the MTech board. 4 additional cities have joined MTech since that point in time. Should you decide to move forward with MTech, you would be the 8th city joining MTech. The interlocal agency agreement governs the MTech process and limits it to design and construction, and it separates it from planning specifically, primarily designed for delivering federal aid projects. You must be a member of MTech to accept those services and participate with MTech, and you always have the option to use MTech or not. That is your decision as a city. 2 processes, federal grants through Federal Transit Administration. We've identified roles and responsibilities for that. In addition, FDOT has what they call the LAP process. We've identified roles and responsibilities with FDOT for that particular process between the cities and MTech. So we are currently active in delivering projects. We started about a year ago with 3 cities, up to 7 now. We're implementing our first projects this year. We started very quickly with 2 with Hollandale Beach and Deerfield Beach. We've added 2 more with Pembroke Pines, and we're looking at additional projects coming on board with Coconut Creek later this year, as well as potentially the project for the city of Fort Lauderdale for the hub project. In summary, MTech is designed specifically to deliver transportation improvements timely and efficiently. We also provide discipline by that being our focus, and we very much take that focus strongly to heart in delivering these projects on your behalf. It limits your need for additional resources for these projects that come every so often and is much more efficient in delivering the projects. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have a few questions, but I'll first defer to our commission. Commissioner Herbst, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Vice Mayor?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Commissioner Glassman?
I'm good for now, thanks.
And Commissioner Sturman?
I'm fine.
Okay, so I have a few questions. How does this interface with our existing processes? For example, we have the MPO who has a staff that makes applications, submits for grants approvals to the federal government and to the state government. How do you interface with those activities?
We do not pick the projects. We do not apply for the grants. Okay, that would be done either through the city or through the MPO or with FDOT. In essence, we're an implementing agency. So once those grants are received, we would do the design and construction on behalf of the city for these federal projects that have very specific requirements, and they are very complicated in moving forward under those requirements.
So you come in after the grant is approved to move the project forward through design and then construction?
Yes, sir.
So you're a design and construction firm?
Not a firm. We're actually a local government agency.
So do you have trucks and cranes and all this stuff to build things?
No.
So tell us, again, I'm trying to understand what it is that you are.
We have a program management consultant, and we have 5 design firms in a library that are ready to go. So they are all federally eligible, federally qualified. So we can move them very timely. I'll give you an example on a LAP project.
Okay.
Under a LAP project, when you sign an agreement, you can start procurement. Okay? 5-6 month process. We're working with FDOT to design a process where we can do procurement concurrent with doing the final application through FDOT for the grant process. So when the LAP agreement's signed, you do notice to proceed. So that saves you 5 to 6 months in the process. In addition to that, we have staff on board that are fully dedicated to understanding the federal requirements and the federal processes, which in many cases for cities, that's things that you don't normally do. So those are very complex processes. They're much more involved. They have different, for example, you have minority business. Federal process is disadvantaged business enterprise. Much different process. Okay? Completely different over here that is driven by federal law that has to be applied. So you have to say, no, we can't do this. We can only do this. Our team is already designed to know all those processes and be able to implement them.
Okay, so the cities that signed up to work with you, you say that the cost to engage you is derived through the grant itself. So there's really no out-of-pocket to any city if they engage your services. Is that correct?
There may be some small out-of-pocket. Depends on how the project is structured and how the grant's structured. There would be an annual fee that would be paid, which is $25,000.
$25,000 is the annual fee?
Yes.
That's the buy-in, the ante?
Well, the $50,000 up front is the ante, and the
Okay.
$25,000 per year is the annual continuation.
Okay, very good. I have no other questions. Anybody else have any questions? All right, great. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Is there any further action we would need to take on that, Greg? Not today?
No, just sharing with you this opportunity, and if you had any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so now we, wow, 2:30 and we're going into commission reports. Sorry. All right. Well, Commissioner Herbst is not here right now, so you have the floor, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much. I was saying, do not identify the time. Let's move on. We don't want to cause any delay.
Jinx it?
Yeah, we're not going to do that. So, yes, thank you for the time, Mayor. For my report today, I'm excited. It's been a very productive couple of weeks, and want to share some things that have been going on in the district and items and celebrations that I had privilege to take part in. I have two young ladies, I call them young ladies, Centurions, turned 100 years old in District 3. Days apart.
There's a lot of longevity in District 3.
There is. There really is.
Must be in the water.
It is moving. Miss Ether Dixon, she lives on Northwest 26th Street, about the 2900 block, 100 years old. She's was born actually in Georgia, but been living in the city of Fort Lauderdale since 1940. Also, we have Mother Sally McCrae. She's 100 as well. She was actually born in the state of Florida, moving into the city of Fort Lauderdale, also approximately 1940. So we had the privilege of going out. The mayor signed a proclamation acknowledging their birthdays, and we were able to go out and present them and celebrate a little bit with the family. So that was really exciting. On September the 7th, I was able to attend the Broward League of Cities board meeting. It was held and hosted by Cooper City, the city of Cooper City. We have, hike out there. Yeah, it is a hike. We'll talk about that later. I'm not a driver. I have a driver. But however, with that, I want to share that we do have a newly installed Broward League of Cities president, which is Deerfield City Commissioner Todd Dotsky. So he's now the new president for Broward League of Cities. Also, the president, he announced for this year, the theme will be invocating one Broward. So we know that's the focus and the direction that he's going in. Also, we had the announcement where the mayor for Cooper City, he's the newly elected president for the Florida League of Cities. So we're excited to share that and looking forward to working with both of these gentlemen to achieve the objectives for both our county, our city, and for the state as well. On the 9th, I was able to attend the Urban League of Broward County Red Gala. It was a beautiful event. It was held at the Hard Rock Guitar Hotel. Very nice event, well attended. On Saturday, September 9th, this was a groundbreaking ceremony through Habitat for Humanities. It's the BBI Village, which will be starting construction on Northwest 19th Street and about the 1000 block. There will be 20 townhouses that will be built in that area, welcoming 20 families to the community. That event was very nice. In attendance was State Senator Dr. Rosalind Osgood, also State Representative Chip LaMarca, Broward County Mayor Lamar Fisher, also CEO, BBI founder as well, Robert Taylor. Also, there was Dillard High School Marching Band. They opened the event with the drum line, so that was very exciting to witness and take part in. But it was a beautiful opportunity to talk and meet with those families who have been selected to live in the area. They are very excited to be for the opportunity to be first-time home buyers. So that was a very, very wonderful opportunity to be with them that afternoon. Also, on September the 11th, we attended the 9/11 memorial that was hosted by our firefighters. This was my first time actually attending that event. Beautiful event. The city, my colleague Steve and I were talking while we were there. we need to do more to promote that particular event. It's my understanding in the past there was more publicity for it, more advertising, but it was a heartfelt event, an opportunity for us to sit and remember and give homage to those who lost their lives on 9/11. Also on 9/11, I did attend the monthly Affordable Housing Committee meeting. I was able to attend that meeting also. On the 13th, I attend the 46th Annual Citizens Recognition Award. During that event, there was 4 citizens that were acknowledged. I had the privilege of reading the proclamation for Citizen of the Year, Bill Rotella. That was a great honor to meet him and his family and read that proclamation for them. Also, during that event, awards and acknowledgement was given for extinguished citizen M. Austin Foreman, also for the extraordinary past employee Hal Barnes, and the honored founder Michael Wayman. I know Michael's last name, Wayman. So it was a beautiful event, and this first year for me has been really enjoyable. The opportunity to recognize and see what so many people in our city are working and accomplishing, and then as a city being able to acknowledge them. So that was really a privilege for me. On the 14th, I attend the press conference for the Florida Beach Bowl. That is the historical Black College and University football tournament that will be held in December at the Drive Pink Stadium. They did a press conference that was held at the YMCA on 9/14, and I was able to attend that press conference. Also, on the 14th, I met with the Lions Club of Fort Lauderdale. My first opportunity to meet with them, meet the president, sit with them and learn their agenda, and they were very kind and willing to work with me and with the city to do some things that we are trying to accomplish. So I want to thank President Barbara Campbell, Mr. Campbell, and Mr. and Mrs. Brown, who were there as well. On the 16th, Saturday the 16th, that was a full day, but we had a beautiful day on the 16th. The Children's Service Council has a grant that they do with the city of Fort Lauderdale that reaches out into District 3, and they have a committee that's called the Community Connectors. And through that event or through that opportunity, they reach out to the community, they give grants for those who are interested in doing an event or a service that could better the community. And on Saturday, there was actually 3 different events from that was funded to offer activities to the community. There was one at Providence Park, which was a health and wellness event. It invited the neighbors to come out to move and groove. There was some exercise and yoga was offered. There was some from the Boyd Garden, which is in District 3. They came out and they showed us how to plant herbs and vegetables that you can do in your own yard. Also gave some seedlings out where you could go home and start your own personal garden. Also, there was an opportunity to have a conversation regarding autism, and that was held at the Jack and Jill Educational Complex on Broward. And also there was in the River Garden Sweden's Estate neighborhood, there was 4 pet poop stations that was installed. So that was something that there was a need for, and they were able to receive the grant as well. So we were able to go out and witness them removing the signage and saying that they're in place. Also, on the 16th in Melrose Park, we had 2 neighbors, 2 families that stood up and invited law enforcement out, police to come and do front porch roll calls on their lawns. So I want to give a thank you to the Lockhart family on Alabama Avenue, and as well as the McCrae family on East Dayton Circle. And it was great opportunity for the neighbors to meet the officers who are actually patrolling the area, putting names to faces and faces to names, answering some questions and building a relationship. And it was really well received. The officers from District 3, they were there meeting the residents. Also, the community action team. I want to thank Sergeant Graves and her team for coming out and meeting the neighbors as well. And also there was Lieutenant Guerrera and Major Swartz. So it was a good afternoon with a lot of things going. That it was a busy weekend, yes, but very enjoyable. And you all know when I left here Wednesday, I was really feeling bad, and I'm not 100 today, but I kept moving because these are some things that I knew is important and we had to do in the community. So that was some of the things that did take place over the last couple days. And then also I have some concerns that I want to bring forward and get attention to. City Manager Greg, if you could help us address this certain issues. We know that the homeless situation is something that we as a city is facing. Right now we have a new population that has declared a new area in District 3, and this is on Northwest 9th Avenue and Northwest 1st Street. A landmark for us is the Dixie Court Market, and there's an alleyway to the north of that structure, and the homeless population has taken up. There's tents there. There's a lot of confusion going on. One neighbor called me and gave me a police report where they called. There was actually a confrontation, a physical fight, where police had to come out, and the neighbor received the police report for our documentation. So we need to go out to make sure that even our homeless task force, that they go out and make sure that these individuals understand that there are some resources for them. But the violence and the confusion that's going on, we need to address and have it addressed immediately.
We'll do that.
Okay, and also in District 3, on Broward Boulevard, the Starbucks, I'm sorry, I don't remember the 100 block, but it is between 31st and 27th.
29th, right?
That's about right, yes. Okay, so that Starbucks area, the 7-Eleven, and then there's also the plaza for the Family Dollar. We're getting reports that the homeless are now camping out there. The Starbucks are having them under the patio. They're actually sitting at the tables where the customers would normally sit. So I'm asking if that could be addressed. Also in that very area, we have that would be to the east of the Starbucks Plaza is the U-Haul. And there is, it's becoming a parking lot for 18-wheelers. So you, at night, it's being told to me that you can go there and there's at least 4 18-wheelers that are parked on that roadway there on that 28th or 29th Avenue on both sides, the U-Haul side and then also at the area of the Starbucks.
We will look into that and address those concerns.
All right. And I'm sorry. I believe that's it for today. But, I'll reach out to you with any other concerns. But those are some items that were phone calls that I've been getting. And we want to make sure that we address those situations. And being that we do have the homeless task force, just making sure that they are aware of how far west as well that those phone calls are coming in regarding the need for the homeless population to be having a conversation with, that they know the resources that are available.
We will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Herbst, do you have any commission reports?
Thank you, Mayor. Typically, as you know, I generally try not to, but today there is something that I do want to address.
What's that?
So there is a rather vile rumor going around right now, and it goes like this. Commissioner Herbst is being investigated for having planted recording devices in City Hall.
You?
Yes. So
all right, that's the first I've
normally
heard this.
I wouldn't address something this ridiculous, but this has gone to the Sun Sentinel, and our police department had to respond to it. So let me just state categorically that I am not involved in recording anything, anywhere, at any time. And to those of you that are spreading these lies, my response is that you are morally and ethically bankrupt. This is very reminiscent of the 3 supposed community leaders last year that accused me of supporting the January 6th insurrection because of my veterans T-shirt. I find these personal character assassinations cowardly, disgusting, and you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Okay. Commissioner Glassman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Last Wednesday, September 6th, Victoria Park Civic Association met. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, we did have a great event on 9/11 at the Safety and Fire Museum, and I agree with her comments because typically I like to get out the flyer that's always in advance, and we just didn't have that opportunity to promote the event this year because there was none. And so I agree with what she said about we really need to do a better job because it is really a very special commemoration. So I'm grateful for her remarks on that. Also, as Vice Mayor mentioned, on this 13th, we did have a great afternoon at the Citizens Committee of Recognition, the awards. And it was a pleasure to actually do the award for Hal Barnes, an exemplary former city employee. And that was really a terrific way to recognize folks that are just constantly giving back to the city. That afternoon also, Wednesday, September 13th, we had the opportunity in the mayor's office to meet with 3 of the local rabbis. That was really very pleasant, and to just have them impart their wisdom to us about the meaning of the Jewish high holy days. So I thought that was also very nice in the mayor's office as well. Thursday, September 14th, Commissioner Sturman was there, and also the city manager. A really exceptional grand opening of the 7 on 7th project. That's a partnership between the Broward Partnership for the Homeless and the Green Mills Group. They have done a splendid job next to the Hack in creating 72 units of housing for folks that are either just about ready to experience homelessness or folks that have just come out of homelessness. What an amazing building with really nice amenities, services, apartments, and that really is a template. And I just can't even believe that just 2 years ago we participated in the groundbreaking for that. But also a great partnership with the state and the county. And us. I know that we gave a height bonus of 25 feet, and we also contributed about $300,000 for streetscape improvements. Again, a great partnership with the state, the county, the city, and those 2 entities, the Partnership for the Homeless and the Green Mills Group. So congratulations to everyone, because that really is a model located in Progresso Village. I want to also thank J.J. Hankerson, who's the president of Progresso Village in District 2, for all of their cooperation as a neighborhood on that project. It was a very, very inspiring ribbon-cutting ceremony. Friday, September 15th, I had the pleasure of joining the mayor at the Las Olas Chabad as we ushered in Rosh Hashanah. What a very nice, welcoming group. I think my favorite line of the evening was when the mayor said he really enjoys getting to wear the yarmulkes because then both he and I get to hide our bald spots. So I thought that was really, really good, Mayor, and I know that that was really accepted in a really great way by the congregants in the synagogue. Those Jewish high holy days obviously did begin that night on the 15th. They continue this week, and they end this Sunday night through Monday night with Yom Kippur, which is a day of fasting, and that would conclude. So to all that are celebrating in our community, I wish you a very happy New Year, a sweet New Year, and a healthy New Year, most importantly. Coming up, Wednesday, September 20th, we have the Flagler Village Civic Association meeting. Saturday, September 23rd, is the grand opening of the Uncommon Path Brewing and Pizza at 710 Northwest 5th Avenue. Friday, September 29th, we have a very exciting weekend coming up, a week from this weekend, with the International Swimming Hall of Fame having the Paragon Awards at the Marriott Harbor Beach on the 29th. And then on the 30th, at the Parker Playhouse right here, is the International Swimming Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I'm being told that one of the inductees this year is Michael Phelps, and it's expected that he will be attending to accept that induction into the Swimming Hall of Fame. I'm also being told that that ceremony right here will be televised by ESPN. So that's going to be quite a nice recognition for our city, and a lot of attention to our city for that. Then Wednesday, October 4th, Mayor, we look forward to the State of the City address. And I'm sure that will be, as it always is, a very positive and uplifting message for all of the residents in the city. A few comments. Number one, I did want to recognize, because I believe that yesterday he made it public. I know that our police chief announced to several groups yesterday that he would be retiring in December. So I just wanted to say thank you, Chief. I don't know if you're here today. You are here. So I did hear that you made that public yesterday. I wanted to say thank you for your service, for all of the work that you've done, stepping in the time that you've been here. And I just know that my colleagues feel the same way, that we're very appreciative of that work and in that transition role and getting us to the point now where the city manager will appoint a new city police chief. So again, thank you, Chief. Greatly appreciated. Lastly, Mayor, I'm going to bring something up now because it is a concern of mine. For the last couple of months, I've been hearing from residents, not just in my district, but also throughout the city, of some concerns of one of our boards. It's an important board. The Charter Revision Board deals with a lot of issues. We've had issues that we've been giving them over the last few years. We've been making a list. But I've been hearing from folks that the board is going in a direction that doesn't necessarily fulfill what we've been asking them to do, and that some of the comments at these meetings are perhaps inappropriate. I did not really know what they were talking about because I haven't watched any of those meetings, but I did get a hold of some of the transcripts of the meetings, and I also was able to view them on recordings. I want to just talk about some of this because I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I do feel after reading the transcripts and viewing the videos that I do believe that the comments and some of the things that are being said offline and online are just not appropriate. I have sat on several boards in the city of Fort Lauderdale and several boards in the county. I have never, ever seen board members or committee members speak ill of sitting commissioners or commissioners who have just recently served. Just unheard of. I've just never experienced that, whether it be from a board member or a chair of a board or committee. I find it inappropriate, and I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. I'm going to also ask, after just going through this very brief video and some comments that I have read in the transcripts, I want to know from the city attorney what recourse does this commission have in terms of, I don't know if we should say censure or discipline or even removal from a board. I don't know what those processes are, if we have them in place, if not, if we should, what other cities might do. But I'd like to just take a look at this. It's not long. This is from the meeting of first March 2nd, 2023, and then also on July 6th, 2023. Can we tee that up?
The other issues is that we found that this past city commission, when I say past city commission, the commission that served it through 2022, the actions that they took were inconsistent with state election laws. And also there were issues of concern, and it was very disturbing to find, which delayed the seating of the commission, that the city had ordinances on the book that were inconsistent with state law. So that was the recipe of bringing this forward now to start fresh. Also, the prior city commission also circumvented the charter as far as issuing licensing agreements for public lands, where the charter was very clear cut on lease agreements. So to get around the city charter, what they started doing was issuing license agreements, which created a lot of controversy here in the public and a lot of public outcry. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed in the charter. And I know, Chris, that's an area that you're very much interested in. And the other issue that came up, Nate had called me several times last year about redistricting, and that this city was not complying with the county's goals and deadlines for the redistricting submittals. You want to go ahead and request section 3.05.
Yeah, well, that's just
designation of vice mayor.
that's one of them, and then it's on the list. Is that on the list? And
That's on the list because it's inconsistent. Again, you all, with Alan as city attorney, left everything inconsistent with practicality and law. Because we did have a lot of concerns about people putting people with professions on zoning boards and then using them as treasurer and soliciting the people appearing before them and not disclosing that. So that is something that if the city want to look at as far as that type of conflict of the person serving as the treasurer on someone's campaign account after putting them on P&Z board, being a realtor, and then soliciting money. So that could be something if you want to look into. But,
I'm getting
it's clarity.
and I'm getting a lot from the community about lobbyists being on boards and so forth.
Then yes, you had that discussion before,
Yeah.
and the issue was that the city, including yourself, have put lobbyists on boards. So if you want to go through past performance, I mean, when you look at the board members to all the different advisory boards, and Ben, you should know this because you've appointed lobbyists to boards, that this has never been an issue before. So I don't know why it all of a sudden became even a question for waste of discussion.
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, go ahead.
You've appointed lobbyists to boards.
Sure. So
is Steve Glassman and Dean. So.
Heard it, but there's a lot of interest from the public about this topic, and
the only people that I've heard about from this topic has been you, and then Steve Glassman. It has not been from the public. It has never been submitted to us. We've been meeting Chris, you were on charter review. I've been on charter review until you guys suspended charter review for years, and it's never been an issue until you and Glassman created this issue. So I think that we really need to spend time talking about issues because Nate is here.
I've gotten some emails, and
I'm sure you have from your followers, that you communicate with, which we're all familiar with. So, I think it's much more important. And all the prior charters always had public participation, public input, and it's never been an issue. And Richard's been on the charter review at the county numerous times, and it's never been an issue. So,
do you want to see if any public have any issues?
Oh, well, sure, you have someone here. I see that every meeting. So you got two people right here. So do you want them to speak? Because those are your people. So
they're not my people.
Well, they are. So
I'm a big believer in community.
Thank you. So I don't know how anyone else feels, but I find this so so totally inappropriate and outrageous to consistently single out sitting commissioners and a mayor using their first names and accusing us of things that are just simply not true and things that I simply have never, ever said. So that when I see a board act like this, I'm flabbergasted. To make allegations that a former commission acted illegally and inconsistent with state election laws, we can debate that all day and night. But if you think that's true, then just do what we said in our ask of this board. We said, please look at our charter and look at state laws and look for inconsistencies. So that could be phrased in a very diplomatic way whereby you would actually get to your goal without then just making it accusatory against a sitting commissioner and a sitting mayor. Again, it's the way you go about dealing with those issues or those inconsistencies between our charter and our state laws without calling people out by name and making allegations. That's where I'm having the issue. Not with what the ask was of our board to this board, but how it was phrased and then how it became a personal attack on a sitting commissioner and a city mayor. To then go on and talk about circumventing the charter, licensing agreements, again, blaming me, blaming the mayor, on and on and on and on. And then bringing up other people from the past, whether it's our city attorney, again, making accusations that we did something that was not correct. Again, these can be debated, but again, the way they are presented is totally, totally inappropriate to say that it's inconsistent and again to be calling people out. This went on, you saw that was in the first one. And then in the July meeting, to call out a former commissioner who happens to sit on the Charter Revision Board and then talk about someone that he might have appointed to a board or whatever, that's not what's important. If he's bringing up an issue or if there is an issue that's being addressed about lobbyists serving on boards, just deal with that issue. Don't make it personal. Don't go after people on the board. Again, I have sat on many boards in the city and county. I have never, ever witnessed behavior like this or words like this coming from a board or in particular a chair. And then to say something like, your people, what does that mean? Your people are here, or your people are the only ones complaining, or that you and Glassman are the only ones complaining. First of all, I've never complained publicly or anywhere else about, lobbyists sitting on the board. A lot of people talk to me about that. But again, don't make those personal accusations. Don't do that at a Charter Revision Board. Again, the Charter Revision Board could have been meeting all these last few years, so don't blame commissioners for it not meeting. I believe the chair of the Charter Revision Board was the chair of the Charter Revision Board then. She could have always just convened a meeting, held a meeting, and dealt with a lot of the issues without personally attacking current city commissioners, mayor, and former city commissioner. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I will just tell you that although I didn't get the video, I have read what happened at the most recent meeting, and I'm not pleased with that either. We did not ask the Charter Revision Board to look at a strong mayor form of government. That was never on our list. So for the chair to bring up, we need to explore strong mayor form of government, and then to say that our city is being mismanaged, well, I don't know where that came from. But again, I guess, Mayor, what I'm saying is I don't want to see our Charter Revision Board become politicized. I don't want to see politics coming into this. And I certainly think that someone needs to talk to the Charter Revision Board about proper decorum, proper etiquette. City attorney, do we have any processes to censure, discipline, or remove people from our boards and committees?
Before that question is answered, I would have loved to have seen this in its entirety. These sound bites where one person is talking, what was the dialogue before and after? I think that would have been a better way to present this other than just picking out things that were said. That's my view on it. No comment on what was said, but give me the whole conversation, not just presenting statements that were said throughout a span of a meeting. That's my comment.
We can do that.
Okay.
We can do that. I
Also-
just didn't want to take up. That would be hours right now. And
I
apologize
understand that,
for that.
but to come and put before the city sound bites of one person saying statements, and I don't know what the conversation was. Others on this dais may not know what the conversation was. So that is my my take on the procedure that's being taken right now. And if Dwayne could answer your question, that was my comment.
Thanks. And just in response to that, what I would say is I would be happy. I'm sure we can get the full meetings of every single charter revision board. But that being said, even just what I have here is what you calling sound bites. You know what? When you're on a board, when you're a chair of a board, you just don't even call out by name and criticize current sitting commissioners and mayors. You just don't do that. So you heard that. So regardless of the context, I'm just saying that is just not appropriate behavior for a advisory board to a city commission. That's all. But I certainly understand the request to see the full meetings. No problem.
Mr. Spence, do you have a response?
Good afternoon. So our code of ordinance does not have an adopted code of conduct for our advisory board and committee members, and it doesn't expressly state what is to be done with regards to removal or suspension of advisory board or committee members. State statute does provide in instances for certain types of municipal board members, specifically described as boards that are created or authorized under general law, special act, or municipal charter, that there's a procedure for their removal for certain types of offenses. So that process would be by resolution specifying the facts sufficient to advise the municipal board member of the basis of their suspension or removal and providing them with reasonable notice and an opportunity to be heard on that. However, other municipalities have adopted codes of conduct, and breaches of those code of conducts are addressed in a similar fashion, but they also have caveats that the board or committee members serve at the pleasure of the city commission, and the city commission can remove those board or committee members at their pleasure with a majority vote.
Thank you. If you could maybe get my office that, or maybe everyone's office that, I just like to read some of those or see some of those, or I like to just understand what other municipalities are doing with regard to that. Again, in all the years I've been involved in the city and committees and boards, I've just never seen discussions like this, and I've never seen language like this.
I'd like to chime in on this because my name was used in these comments. I'm not sure what action we should take, but I do find it offensive that anyone would use an advisory board to serve as a forum in which to almost engage in an inquisition on members serving in public on this board, on this commission. I agree with you, Commissioner Glassman. It's totally inappropriate for someone to participate in an advisory board which is intended to serve out the direction of the commission, and at no point did anyone on this commission direct any advisory board to engage in some sort of investigation or inquisition on conduct past or current in connection with the charge they are given that each advisory board is established. So in terms of the Charter Review Board, I don't recall anyone from this commission charging the Charter Review Board with a request to investigate conduct or in any way to challenge actions that were taken by this commission. And I think that anyone who thinks that they serve on an advisory board for that purpose misunderstands their role. And I think that if it was done with intent to try to denigrate or to demonize myself or any other member of this commission, I think it's completely inappropriate. I understand that the rest of the board, though, has since made it clear to the chair that that kind of direction is not appropriate, and they don't intend to continue in that manner. But I also see the fact that it came up again in a subsequent meeting, that the effort will continue, and I just think that we need to figure a way, and maybe we should have a joint meeting with the Charter Review Board to express our points of view as to how that board needs to conduct its business. Apparently, that's going to be necessary. I've never, like Commissioner Glassman has said, I've never ever heard of something like this happening on any of our boards in the past, and I don't think the people of this community intend to have their advisory boards become an opportunity for people to attack the commission, and I think that they're intended to produce positive results in order to try to move the city forward. Now, I don't know what the remedy is. I don't know if we're really looking for a remedy just yet, but I think we should at least hear out what the chair was engaged in, have the chair come here with her board and to discuss what direction they feel that they are charged with in order to pursue the interests of this commission. Now, I do want to say one thing, Commissioner Glassman, with regard to the issue of strong mayor. That is something that I had requested the board consider, not because I feel that our city manager is anyway derelict in his duties, but as I go to these meetings, and I'm going to discuss it in my commission reports, as I go to these meetings with other mayors around the state, I see that sometimes the most efficient governments within these cities are headed by a strong mayor. Now, it's certainly not something I'm looking to do, I can tell you right now, but for a future mayor, the administration of a city is often best served by someone who's directly accountable to the people. And that would be a goal, Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, in some measure Miami, Hialeah.
Plantation.
Plantation is the only one in Broward County, correct. But I see, and each one of those strong mayors has a sort of city manager that works with them. So it's not like that role is extinguished. It's just that the line of communications, the line of responsibility, everything centers around a strong administrative figure. And I wish the county of Broward would adopt that too, but they can't even seem to find a way to even get a county-wide elected mayor. And it's to their detriment that happens, because as I travel around the country and I travel around the world, and when people look to this area and they say, well, who's your mayor? And it's like, well, what day of the week is it? It shows an inconsistent pattern of agendas and direction as they select a new mayor every year, each mayor coming up with their own ideas as to where the county should be going, and before they ever get a head start, their turn is up, and then somebody else comes in. So, and unfortunately, that puts a lot of responsibility on their city staff and the county administrator, and in the end, the county administrator ends up running the county and not the elected officials. So I feel that there should be more accountability to the people by having a strong mayor form of government, and I think it's something that should be considered by this city going forward. It's not a real priority right now, but I do think it should be something that maybe with a joint meeting with the Charter Review Board, we might be able to come to a conclusion as to where we should take that issue. But I fully agree with you, Commissioner, that that's not what we expect to be taking place in our advisory boards. Everyone's entitled to free speech, and no one should be denied their right to speak. But I'm not sure that's the agenda that we have assigned to that board, and I'm hopeful that we can see more productive activity taking place there.
No, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the time, and my colleagues, thank you for the time. I also wanted to let you know, Mayor, that I was told that several people that were in attendance at one of those meetings actually did request a letter of apology from the chair for things that were said that implicated them as someone's people. And I know that those letters were also received by members of the public. But thank you for the time.
Okay. Do you have any further comments? Is that to conclude your report?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner
So,
Sturman?
Mayor, I just want to weigh in on that conversation.
Okay,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, thank you. 2 points. I concur with the Vice Mayor that I am always uncomfortable when we just have excerpts. So, because then it can lead to the impression that things are being taken out of context. So, I think if we're going to look at something, we need to look at the conversation preceding that. And maybe that might put it into a different flavor, if you will. But and then to your other comment, Mayor, regarding the strong mayor, having worked in a city of Jacksonville that has a strong mayor, certainly there are benefits to it. I remember having a conversation with former city manager Lee Feldman, and he said one of the things that induced him to want to work for the city of Fort Lauderdale is that we are the second largest city manager form of government in the state of Florida, the largest being Tallahassee. So typically it's something that you see in smaller cities. Once you have a city of our size, our stature, our complexity, generally that's when the strong mayor starts to look like a more attractive governance model. So certainly I'd be open, to having the Charter Review Board look at that and bring that back for consideration. It is a very effective way of running a larger, more complex organization, which is what we are evolving into.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah. Well, when I look at the faces of the strong mayors that I did meet with, it takes a lot out of you, for sure. Commissioner Sturman.
Oh boy, going last.
Shana Tova.
I always get the bombs dropped on me before I'm ready to speak. Okay, I'm going to pivot for a second. What was just thrown here? We as a commission are free to accept or reject any suggestion of any board or advisory that we have. As a community, we strive to support free speech, community, citizens, our advisories. Steve, your right to free speech. In that regard, your right to your opinion. All I want to say is, at this point, I personally am not going to respond to your allegations right now. I have 3 other things I just want to talk about. Going back to Pam. I hope you don't mind me calling you Pam. It's no disrespect, but a term of endearment. I know you've had a couple people that reached 100. I have. I didn't ask their permission, so I can't use their name. But it turns out, since I have somebody, a couple who've had their 70th wedding anniversary. 70th. I was doing the math while you were talking. They were married during.
You married 70 years of the same people?
Yes, yes. They were married during the Eisenhower administration, right? His first, when he was taking it from Truman. Think about that. That's remarkable. So it gives us all hope that we could get along with each other. Maybe the 5 of us here could take a lesson in that. Number 2, there's only two more things. Mr. City Manager, I've mentioned this before. I'm not going to yell and scream and point the finger, but I'm going to use Commissioner Beasley Pittman's terms as an opportunity. And this is coming up a little too frequently, not having backup items on the agenda. There was a couple of noteworthy ones, including the one in this conference with the Prospect Lake water treatment plant. I think we have an opportunity. We need to do a better job in publishing the backup stuff and the exhibits at the time of the agenda when it comes out. I know it's a time crunch, but I think that's something that I mentioned it before, but I think we really started. Greg, could you make a commitment?
Yes, we will make sure that moving forward, unless the item has the backup, we are not publishing it.
But that's something. And the last thing is, at the Jewish New Year, if you give me a moment, I do have a couple words that I've written down for the community I want to say for the Jewish New Year, okay? And you guys know me already. Hang on, wait.
Is it in Yiddish?
Remind me if I read. Happy New Year.
You need to read that.
You know, I'm a man of few words.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
All right, thank you. Just a few things. On September 7th, I was invited to represent the city at the Alliance dinner that they had, in which they hosted the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, who spoke regarding monetary issues that the Federal Reserve Bank was following and planned to follow. Unfortunately, the president talked about continuing to keep interest rates high in order to bring inflation down to 2%. We thought that was a bit draconian. People in the crowd thought that it should be more balanced. It would put more people out of work. He says, well, you have 2.5% unemployment here. What are you worried about? I didn't like that answer, but I understand the Federal Reserve Bank approach. September 11th was really a very important day, and I appreciate everyone who attended for having participated. It's something we can never forget, and it's important that we recognize that every year. The next day, September 12th, I attended a meeting that was hosted by Judge Tudor, who is the senior judge here in Broward County, with regard to countywide homelessness issues. In attendance were BSO officers and administrative staff, Harold Pryor, our state attorney, as well as other members of the community who participated in a wide-ranging discussion over homelessness. During that meeting, I brought up the point of the discharge proceedings from the jail. And Greg, do we have any report? I hate to put you on the spot like this, but do we have any update on any meetings we're having with the sheriff on moving that discussion on protocols forward with regard to discharge proceedings?
So from that meeting, I understand there were some action items, and one of those is to create a working group between Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Pompano, and the county, so that we can look at that process in itself and see how we can at least improve that, because that is serving right now as a funnel point for bringing individuals from across the county over to Fort Lauderdale. So we look forward to providing you a report as we formulate that, and also bring awareness, and also attempt to find a better way to do that.
Okay, and you know, of course, the sooner the better, and engaging the sheriff and his staff in participating in that. I know in our previous meetings with him, when we had that luncheon with him, he was very amenable to working with us and to change the discharge proceedings at the county jail. So I know some members of your staff were at this meeting, so I appreciate your commitment to this, and I just hope that we can move this forward so we get some kind of solution really, really quick, so that it doesn't continue to burden our city with the homeless problem that is generated from those taken to the county jail. The citizen recognition ceremony Vice Mayor spoke of, really it was quite an event, because I think it recognized some folks that should have been recognized a long time ago, and we really appreciate the Citizen Recognition Committee for having recommended these individuals, and very proud. I think this commission can be very proud of those choices, and I know the individuals that were the recipients of those awards felt very proud in receiving them. Let's see. On September 14th, I was in Tampa. I attended the Florida League of Cities has put together a group called the Florida Big City Mayors, and Fort Lauderdale just makes the cut, the top 10 populated cities in the state. And the Florida League engaged the services of a pollster. This gentleman put together a number of issues and surveyed populations within each of our cities to determine their responses. And the two biggest things that were associated with our city were water issues and homelessness. And this gentleman has agreed to come visit with me and to be more and to give more specific information to us. He's agreed to all the cities to give us a more granular explanation of his results. So when I have that meeting, I'll be happy to report back to the commission. But water was not so much in terms of water treatment, but waterways. What we're doing with our waterways, pollution, cleanliness, and how it interacts with our the recreation community. I didn't get to attend the fire rescue chili cook-off. I didn't hear anyone mentioning that they went to it, but I had other things that I had to go to. But I'm sure it was a great success, and I hope you raised a lot of money. Back to September 15th, attending the Rosh Hashanah dinner. I know Commissioner Herbst attended a Rosh Hashanah dinner in his district. I was able to attend the one with Commissioner Glassman over at the Chabad on Las Olas Boulevard. About 120 people maybe there. Yeah. It was really a great opportunity to connect with our Jewish community. I've been doing this now almost every year now since I become mayor. How many years have you been doing this, Commissioner Glassman?
Since my bar mitzvah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
The last century? Yeah, okay.
Eisenhower administration.
Anyway, and I appreciate being invited this year, and I appreciate being asked to speak, and I thought it was a great event. Just have a couple of issues I want to talk about. The city attorney search. I understand the committee met yesterday and is forwarding a recommendation. I'd like to know if this commission is interested in interviewing the three choices that were made the finalist, or do you just want to interview the one choice? I think I've already met with their selection, Tom Ansbro. I'd recommend that you work through the city attorney's office and see if you can have that opportunity to meet with the recommended fellow and the other individuals that were part of the finalist list. If you haven't yet had that chance, I would encourage you to do that. When do you plan to bring that to the commission?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So we were going to provide the update, get your preference on how you wanted to conduct the interviews, and we could secure time. If you'd like to do it one-on-one, we can certainly coordinate that. The HR department is actually the one doing the recruitment efforts, so we can, if you could give us your availability for next week, we can establish those one-on-one interviews if you'd like.
I would encourage the one-on-one, because the last time we selected a city attorney, it was very awkward having those 4 or 5 candidates in the same. It was just didn't make a lot of sense, and I would encourage you to try to meet these candidates one-on-one and get to know them. And get have your own feelings about their capabilities.
Mayor, I thought that our committee was again meeting on Thursday. Greg, are they still meeting on Thursday to vet references and things like that?
They are meeting on Thursday to review findings of their background checks. They're doing background checks themselves.
Okay, and I thought that they actually, I know what the mayor's saying about one candidate, but I was told by my appointee that they actually are recommending that we look at 2 out of the 3.
So that may be what your individual appointee said, but we're presenting all 3 to you all with their backup information.
Okay.
And you all have the ability to coordinate one-on-one meetings. We can work with you to coordinate one-on-one meetings with each, with 2 or 1.
Okay, great. So we just will be in communication with you about who we'd like to meet with and when?
Correct, through Jerome. Jerome will be working with Ashley Dixon to get your availabilities and get those logistics worked out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Also, I want to comment on what Commissioner Herbst said in his report regarding his being accused of surveillance of the commission. I find that very offensive, that anyone would accuse anyone on this commission of doing undertaking activity that is of this nature. However, I am aware that someone did attempt that, and I find that offensive. And anyone who's looking to engage in some sort of, I don't know, this kind of activity, I just don't think is appropriate, and I totally discourage it. And any attempts on that in the future, I think, should be responded to with some sort of enforcement action. I don't know what that is right now, but it's totally inappropriate, and we should never find that to be something that the commission should have to be subjected to.
Mayor, I've only heard snippets of this. I don't really have the full facts or what exactly happened. I've only heard rumors from different people or people that were near these devices. Is it possible for us to just even know what happened?
Sure. Last Wednesday, we had a special meeting. In that special meeting, there was a contractor that was hired by someone from the public, and they had installed some sound recording devices, one here at the front, one near the dais, and apparently those devices were transmitting the sound or capturing the sound for the video that was being recorded. And once the meeting was over, there were members of the public that noticed that there was a device that is a audiovisual device. It was very apparent. It wasn't surveillance-like. It was a very apparent device. And as such, they raised it to me. I raised it to the police chief. The police chief took action, worked with that vendor, and basically took care of it. There were no further claims from the people that were that had the concern, and so we believe that the issue was resolved.
And how do you know there was a vendor involved?
That's what I was told, and the chief of police can also give you more details on that.
Was this quote vendor unquote actually spoken to last Wednesday?
Chief of police, his staff spoke to that person, yes.
And that vendor identified who he or she was working for?
I don't have those particulars. I know that they were hired by someone, a member of the public, to do the recording.
I'd like to have the details. I mean, because again, I don't have this information. I'm hearing this. I would have never even known about discussing this until Commissioner Herbst mentioned it, and it is awful that he's being accused of this. But now that this has been discussed, I'd like to just have some details so we could put it to bed.
So let me ask a question about this, because in all the years that I've been on the dais, we have had people come up and put microphones up on the podium to record conversations. We've had the news set up a half dozen cameras in the back, and they put microphones all over. Because I know when I sat in the Sergeant of Arms seats, they were always sitting in front of me, because I sat in front of the podium for 16 years, and there were constantly microphones up there. So is this legal or is this illegal, Dwayne?
The question goes to what portions of the night they're recording. They're recording the public meeting, and it's open and obvious, then there's no violation of law. But as you know, recording audio conversations without the consent of the individuals that you're recording is a violation of law. So our conversations during breaks and so forth, where we haven't consented to being recorded, and there's a device that is picking up our conversations, is definitely a violation.
So recording in general during the meeting is not. So then, if I understand that correctly, they have an obligation then to turn off the recording device once the public meeting portion is over. Is that kind of how that works?
Correct. It goes to the expectation of privacy of the members within this room and the members on this dais. So we have an expectation of privacy, and I guess that would be new area of litigation, in a sense, to determine how far that expectation actually goes for us when we're between breaks.
So the next question is, I've always understood that if you're in a public space, there's no expectation of privacy. So, I mean, isn't this the whole basis for people recording transactions out on the street with regard to our law enforcement officers and things like that? That when you've got people in a public space, there's no expectation of privacy?
Well, that would be the question with regards to the factual situation, the facts related to the portions of the conversations that they record. So in my view, there is an expectation of privacy, particularly if we're up here on the dais and the sound recording devices are off and we're in a break.
How does that relate to Ring cameras that then record everything from my door, like out 30 feet? So I'm recording the entire street constantly, including
Again, it's the
conversations and things like
that. It's a factual situation that deals with the recording itself.
It's a developing area of law is basically what you're saying, because the law didn't contemplate Ring cameras all over the place?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, but yeah.
So, Dwayne, let me ask you a question, because, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Chief, can you, we seem to be engaged in some sort of espionage here, so you want to fill us in? What happened? Who do you know? Who's involved?
There's no espionage. The parties involved, even if there was a criminal matter, and just as a matter of record, for us to proceed with a criminal investigation, which we are not, that would be a decision made by the state attorney's office as to whether a crime occurred and whether any prosecution would be warranted. The parties involved requested that no action be taken. They did not want to file any kind of charges. They didn't want any kind of prosecution. Any kind of prosecution, even if it was warranted.
They?
So
we were the victims. So who are they?
Well, there were several people that brought this to our attention.
Right, but I mean, to Commissioner Glassman's question, there was a vendor involved. Did the vendor identify who they were working for?
I don't have the names of the parties involved. We can get that for you if you'd like, but I don't have that with me now. And if you would prefer that we take some further action, you can make a report of that also if you'd like to do that.
Well,
but at the moment, we have no parties involved that wanted to take any action. And from our perspective, we can't even tell if it was a criminal violation or not. Probably not, given the circumstances. But that would be a decision that the state attorney's office would have to make.
Okay, so can you get back to us with the information as to whom was identified?
Yes.
Okay.
Ho. When we're up here, we have the assumption that we're being recorded. We're being recorded here. You have a private conversation, you leave. I would imagine we have the assumption that we are being recorded. And for us to think that we're not is
well, no,
but it's not just us.
We are recording ourselves. We are recording
but
ourselves.
anybody comes to this private forum and presents over here, was this assumption that we're being recorded.
But Commissioner, there were people at the podium, according to what I'm hearing now, that felt they were being recorded, and according to our city attorney, didn't those people have an assumption of privacy?
This is the first time this is the first time I've heard of this instance. So everything I'm telling you is just kind of off the cuff. But
Chief,
as counsel for the commission, I am concerned, particularly if I'm advising my client that someone's recording my confidential legal advice that I'm giving the city manager or any of the commissioners who had discussions with me during that time period.
So it's that, but it's also the people, Commissioner, that were standing at the podium that were realizing that their little private conversations with each other was being recorded.
This is after during a break or while the meeting is meetings in conference.
The meeting was over. The meeting, it was the budget hearing was over, and the mayor had closed the meeting.
So this is the first time I'm hearing about it too, so I can't comment.
Okay,
on it.
So who brought it to the?
We just want to find out more information.
Who brought it to the police attention? Jackie's waving her hand there, but who brought it to the police attention? Oh, these two.
It was brought to my attention by the city manager.
Ms. Jackie Scott was the one that brought it to my attention.
Okay.
I just want to clarify the details so that you all have it firsthand.
Sure.
Bill, myself, Donaldson, we were all standing here chatting when I think Donaldson said, "What's that? It's a recorder." I mean, it was over there. And then we looked and there was another recorder on the center stage. So we were concerned that our personal conversations after the meeting ended were being recorded. So we told the city manager called over the police chief, who then verified, yes, it's a recording. So after that happened, they went up to the lady that was standing up there that was the audio-visual person, I don't know what the technical term is, and she came down, and as the police chief was escorting her away, I said, who are you working for? And she said, Barbara Stern. I said, okay. So then what happened after that is the police chief asked us if we wanted to press charges. We said no. We just wanted to make sure that our personal conversations that occurred after the meeting ended would be erased. And so we were perfectly fine. But those are the details of what happened.
So that lady, that vendor,
Correct.
indicated to you that those listening devices that were put on stage here were done at the request of Barbara Stern?
Correct.
Okay.
So I just want to set the record straight. There's no speculation. This is really pretty clear cut what happened.
Do we have a couple quick things? Do we have any protocols in place here for? I mean, I would imagine, like Mr. Herb said, the press is allowed to be here. Public is for certain windows of opportunity. People are allowed to record this. It's not. Do we have any?
The whole meeting is recorded, right?
No. This is not. This is for the police chief. Do we or for Dwayne? Do we have any protocols for people who want to record that they have to announce it or coordinate with us or inform?
We don't. Besides the what we do announce on our agendas is that for those who need hearing assistance, that they contact the city clerk to make arrangements for auxiliary devices, installations to assist them in those matters. I am unaware of any policy that deals with recording devices. As Commissioner Herbst has stated earlier, it's regular practice for local media to set up their microphones and so forth to record our meeting. Again, there is no issue with the recording of the public meeting. It is the issue with regards to the conversations that occurred outside of the public meeting. And again, it's as I stated, I'm just hearing about this at this meeting. It's something that we'd have to research to kind of get a understanding what our expectation of privacy is while we're sitting up here at the dais. If there is case law on point that suggests that there is no expectation of privacy, then it is what it is.
During the meeting, there's no
Well,
expectation.
here's my thinking. Maybe we should develop protocol, and people who
I think
want to
we
have
should too.
They have a listing device. They said they're either not necessarily register, but let them know we have a list. It can go on. It has to be off during this time. Here's what it is, and maybe we should. I mean, would it be helpful to know where they're going to be putting it so we could coordinate with our audiovisual with anybody else who wants to have access to recording this? I mean, maybe it's something we should consider.
I think that brings up an interesting point, though, because the real question then becomes one of intent. So if I put a recording device and somebody walks up to it, as opposed to I go and put a recording device next to somebody to record them, right? So if you have something that is obvious and notorious out there, microphone standing up like this, and somebody walks up next to it and begins to speak, that's different than if I surreptitiously go over and slide a microphone underneath you to record your conversation. Because if we've got somebody recording, then, you know, the meeting's over, they have to get down, shut off the recording device, do whatever they need to do to disconnect that. If somebody engages in conversation during that period of time, obviously it's not done with intent. And isn't intent a key factor in criminality?
Well, no one's saying this is criminal. We're just
Well,
trying to come.
because there was a question of criminality, Mayor.
Well,
so
we're
the
just
question
trying to
was-
come up with. We just want decorum in our commission meetings, and we don't. I think it's a little sneaky to be sticking listening devices in places where we're unaware, and especially when it's not just us; it's the public too. Ms. Scott spoke about how her conversations were being recorded after the meeting was adjourned, and they have an expectation of privacy. So it's not just about the commission, it's about any member of the public. And I just think that, to Commissioner Sturman's point, we should have some sort of protocol that we should establish, not necessarily casting any aspersions today, but perhaps going forward, we should come up with some kind of set of rules as to who's entitled to record us, and should we have notice of those recording devices in advance, and so forth and so on. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, there's a whole slew of what are called First Amendment auditors out there. And in fact, we have been one of those entities that has fallen afoul of the First Amendment auditor. You may remember the gentleman who stood on the steps of City Hall holding up a sign and said, "God bless the homeless." And our security guards called the police department, who then came out and interacted with the gentleman in a way that was actually impermissible. So let us be really cautious.
Of course,
There's
we need to
ample
be
case law
cautious.
on this
Of course,
as
we
it-
need to be cautious.
Okay.
But I do think that we should have some level of decorum here in our chambers.
A decorum, as long as it does not interfere with individuals' First Amendment rights to observe their government in action and be in a public place.
Totally agree with you. Okay, let me continue with my report. Water Garden. Water Garden lost service a number of days ago and took a while before they ever got it back on. Do we have any explanation as to what happened there?
I'm going to ask Director Dodd to come up and provide some details on that. We know that 12 days ago there was a pipe that broke, and he'll give more specifics, but nevertheless.
Just to give you a brief update, okay, it's in my
Yeah.
district. We did have, from what I gathered, I mean, the first thought was it's the construction next door, but Colonel Dodd will give you more details. It looks like it was a 30-year-old pipe. It wasn't related to the construction. It's day 13 or 14 right now. For those people out there watching, we did test negative, the good news, on a day ago. Unfortunately, it tested positive. Positive is a bad thing. It's the opposite of what you think. So we failed our test today. So it's a 2-day testing. They have to be tested. It has to pass 2 days in a row. We failed, so we have to have 2 more days. We are providing bottled water on a regular basis, so the community there, please check with your board. And I want to thank the police department, the fire department. Chief Golan is out there, went above and beyond. So we are giving them water. Please observe the boil water. And Colonel Dodd, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Could you put your mic on, please? Could you push the button, please?
There's no recording device.
Does that work better now?
Yeah.
Mayor,
Actually,
Commissioners, as the Commissioner said, it did not pass today. They tested yesterday. It was clean. Today it passed for total bacteria, but there was no reading of E. coli in there. So what they're doing is they're increasing the flushing in the neighborhood. We'll be testing again tonight at 6 p.m., and we'll start that 2-day process again. We'll increase the flushing. The points that we're testing it from will be adjusted slightly, and the volume will be pushing through the system will be increased to try and flush out the bacteria that we're reading so that we hopefully will get a clean reading in 2 days. This is one of those areas where there's not a whole lot of water flow that goes down into there, and once you get down below 20 psi pressure, it's very difficult to get it out, and that's why we started small in the area that we're flushing, and then they expand the area and trying to increase the pressure going into the area to get it out, knowing that the more that we increase the size and the amount of pressure, it will drop the water pressure in the neighborhoods, and it creates a lot of other problems for the rest of the city because it is an isolated area.
So what actually happened that caused the water the water service to be, what was it? They lost water pressure completely, or?
It was an emergency repair that was conducted. I don't know the details on what happened, but they went in to do an emergency repair at night. The pressure dropped below 20 pounds per square inch, which requires us to put into place a precautionary boil water notice as soon as that happens. And that went into effect on September 7th. They've been doing testing and flushing of the system since then. We test once a day, and we just have not been able to get it out. We had the same problem down on Las Olas Isles, I think about a year and a half ago, where we just, it took more than 2 weeks to get the system cleared at that location as well.
Okay, so they were already engaged in a repair order, and as it was ongoing, this is what resulted.
Yeah, it was not a planned maintenance project. It was an emergency repair project that happened on September 7th that caused it to drop below 20 psi, and that's what initiated the problem.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say one
go
quick
ahead,
thing.
Go ahead.
We already, Jerry, you want to wait raise your hand there, Chief of Staff. We're already arranging for a town hall, and Mr. Colonel Dodd has agreed to participate for not just Water Garden, but for all those condos in that area. I think as early as next week, we'll keep you abreast. So to address concerns, what happens going forward, the process, and all that stuff. I want to thank you for that. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Rogers, can you give us an update what's going on with the Las Olas parking garage? I'm speaking specifically with regard to the lighting and the screening. Where are we on that?
Good afternoon, Ben Rogers, Transportation Mobility. So, Mayor, if we look at the garage, there's a couple different issues, like you said, the lighting and then the mesh. So the mesh is being reviewed by the City Attorney's Office, and I believe they're working with an outside counsel on that to figure out if there's any remedies based off of the T-staining.
But unfortunately, that's been going on for about 2 years. So we need to know, we need to either get other people to review this, or we need to take some sort of action, because originally when we saw this powder-coated steel, which has started to rust, we were told that the only remedy there is to rip the whole thing off because there's no way to reapply the powder coating. Then we were told in order to remove it, we'd have to remove all the lighting, and now the lighting doesn't work. So we need some action here. This is ridiculous.
So we have discontinued our relationship with the firm that we had evaluating that, and we are now in the process of identifying another firm to carry this forward.
Firm meaning engineering firm or law firm?
Law firm.
Okay. Well, we need to move on this. I mean, I know this was handed to you. I mean, it's not something you've been dealing with a lot, but really, Dwayne, you know, it's just an embarrassment that this you know, wonderful feature that we spend so much money on, it now just doesn't work. It's just ridiculous. So, go ahead.
We need to get it fixed.
I'm sorry?
We need to get it fixed.
Yeah, we need to get it fixed. We need to get it fixed.
Yep.
So complete what you were going to say.
I would say the second part is the lighting.
Yeah.
So the lighting has had some issues, as we know. The vendor came out and did some waterproofing and got everything working, and then over time, some of those light strands have discontinued. So we've got some quotes. Unfortunately, the lights are at an end of life on the software side of things. So if we upgrade
end of life
on the software side, so if we upgrade the light strands, that means we have to upgrade all of the software back end behind it. So for the existing strands that are out right now, it's somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000 to fix. If we take that and multiply it towards all of the lights on the garage, which we wouldn't have to do at this time, but just logically thinking down the road, that's a much larger number, probably closer to $2 or $3 million.
Don't we have a warranty?
I believe there's a warranty period on there, and that's something that we'll have to, again, work with the City Attorney's Office on. I think that when they came out as part of the warranty work and made all the corrections and the waterproofing, it started working. But, again, that would be under further evaluation.
All right, so we've made our claim with them. So the warranty period, I mean, so we have to make, I don't know whether it was a 1-year warranty, 5-year warranty, you know, we've got to really move on this, you know, and we don't want the community to be stuck with a bill for defective equipment. I mean, it's just recently been installed, so I can't imagine why software would be obsolete on just lighting. It's not, you know, we're not talking about sending spaceships into space. You know, this is just lighting. So, and the type of money you're talking about is ridiculous. So, can you report back to us by next meeting and any progress that you've made with regard to understanding where this is going?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll work with the city manager's office to figure out a funding plan or bring that back to you with a little more granularity, and then I'll follow up with the city attorney's office on next steps for the measure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, lastly, I don't know who to ask this question of, whether you, Dwayne, or the police chief. Where are we going now in the enforcement of our panhandling ordinance?
The chief can come up and provide updates on that. Yeah, it's solicitation at prominent intersections.
Good afternoon again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission. Our Dwayne has provided that ordinance to us. Our new legal advisor has that information now. She's preparing a training bulletin and specific training for our officers, and hopefully we will begin enforcement of that very soon.
Like next week?
That would be ideal.
Okay. You hear that, everybody? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
All right. That concludes my remarks. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Yeah, I have a few things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Commissioners. Wanted to just share that the FTL Connect, the printed version, is being mailed out, so it should be coming to your homes, to everyone's homes in the next few days. Very excited, as this is a new mode of allowing us to engage and let everyone know about what's going on in the city. As we discuss the city attorney recruitment, we hope to wrap that up very soon as we coordinate interviews with you all, and we'll have that scheduled for next week. Again, we're very grateful for Chief Lynn and his service. His retirement is something that we're happy for him. And we're very happy to that, through many challenges, he's been helping us out, lead the department. We're also happy to report that we're going to begin the recruitment as early as this evening. We're going to post the position tonight and looking forward to getting candidates reviewed and interviewed very soon. On another note, we received a report on commuter rail New River crossing. We asked the specialists to do a report about what it would take to facilitate the commuter rail crossing through the New River via a tunnel. We just mailed that report to you all. So we're going to be compiling all the reports and all that we know and sharing that with you at a future conference meeting.
But Greg, let me just interrupt you for just a second, because let me just add to your comments. With regard to the commuter rail, as many of you know, the idea of a commuter rail has been proposed by the county and the state for a number of years now, and we've been working with those agencies to see how it would best work going through our city. The city manager and I have been meeting again and again, multiple meetings, multiple locations, different states, trying to find out what's in the best interest of the city of Fort Lauderdale. So part of the issue, as you all know, is the crossing of the New River and how that would impact the city of Fort Lauderdale. Originally, the plan by FDOT was to build a taller bridge, anywhere between 55 feet and higher, in order to go over the river and accommodate as much river traffic as possible without opening the bridge, which would interfere with the train commute. So when we heard about that, we realized that in order to build a bridge that high, it would have to run right through Flagler Village and south through Davie Boulevard, and it would create a wall right through the middle of our city, and all the implications that we've all previously discussed and came to a conclusion. We decided that was unacceptable for our city. So we proposed a tunnel through the city, and FDOT, as you know, came back with some crazy number. And then the county and the city hired a group called the White House Group to come up with an independent analysis of the study that FDOT had done. Turned out it wasn't so independent. They pretty much depended upon all the metrics that the state provided them, and they more or less just corroborated whatever the state said. It wasn't an independent study. It was kind of a waste of time and a waste of money. We had been meeting with Brightline and Fortress, the holding company of Brightline. The city manager and I attended a meeting 3 weeks ago in New York City. And also last week we did in-person and Zoom in order to discuss the path forward. The MPO has come back to us and said hey, we can do a 25-foot bridge, and a 25-foot bridge would allow the tracks to come right before the station, so we wouldn't have to build a bridge through the middle of Flagler Village. In order to make that work, they've agreed to build underpasses. So think of this for a second. You would go under, so Broward Boulevard, instead of there being a bridge for the tracks would stay where they're at, but FDOT would agree to build an underpass under the tracks, both at Broward, at Sistrunk, at Andrews, at Sunrise, and at Davie Boulevard. The MPO had renderings, which they gave to us as an example of what an underpass would look like, and how a 25-foot bridge would be, how it would be situated along the tracks. It didn't take long for the Marine Industries Association to say never would there ever be a 25-foot bridge. They completely objected to that, and so whatever attempt between the city and the county to try to be accommodating on this issue just fell apart, because the Marine Industries would not accept a 25-foot bridge. Nor would Brightline accept a 25-foot bridge, because they're looking to do commuter service not just every hour, but in the future they're looking to do it every 15 to 20 minutes. So that would mean that the bridge would have to be down almost all the time in order for them to accommodate the kind of commuter program that they have envisioned for the future. So we're back to where we started from. But the good thing is Fortress has agreed to take a more engaged role here and to participate in the funding, securing funding, and in the operation and management of the tunnel. So that's where we're at now, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. We have gotten tremendous buy-in from the federal government in terms of helping to fund this, and next February is the date by which we have to submit an application in order to be able to take advantage of the infrastructure money that was passed by Congress several years ago. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. City Manager, but I just wanted to give everyone an update. Did I pretty much summarize where we are? Okay.
You did.
Commissioner Herbst.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So granted that the 25-foot height bridge may be dead, pun intended, in the water. But I just want to make sure when we're talking about this is more than Broward Boulevard and Sistrunk and Sunrise. It's also Oakland Park Boulevard, Commercial Boulevard, and Cypress Creek. So as we do this, there's other parts that are major east-west corridors that are just as important as Broward Boulevard is.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't leave out
We're
District
not leaving
1
them,
as we're looking at this again.
No.
Okay.
In fact, other cities.
We're up there.
No,
okay. We're just letting you know we're there.
Honestly, with regard to the underpass program, the MPO has envisioned a program going from one end of the county to the next, because they love that idea. It was an idea that I came up with from the start, but they poo-pooed it at the beginning and said, "Oh, it can never work," and now they're the ones proposing
Who
it.
came up with that idea?
Huh?
Who came up with that idea?
So, but I still think the tunnel idea is really the only way we can do it. Now, we met what was it, 2 weeks ago in New York with this city manager, and I met with contractors and developers who may actually put together your favorite, Commissioner Herbst, an unsolicited proposal to build the tunnel at a fraction of what the FDOT has proposed.
I don't mind unsolicited proposals that are going to be directed at the county.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Well,
let
it may come to us, and I don't see anybody else out there, banging our door to build a tunnel through our city.
True.
So,
let me touch on something else that you said, though.
Yeah.
Because I think this is actually just as important, if not more so. So, if we are running trains every 15 minutes. I grew up riding the New York City subway system. It's every 10 to 15 minutes. that is going to be a massive, massive burden on all of our east-west traffic, not just on the major roads that people are using that may have the underpass, but on every other one of these. So if you go down, for example, south of the river, you've got 7th Street, and all of these smaller feeder roads. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%, but that's their vision. Because
there's not been a lot of discussion about that.
Well, it will probably be well past our tenure here on the commission. I can guarantee you that. I mean, it's something they see in the future. This is what they see all intercity commuter lines that are successful, that they're frequent, and they feel that the only way that this will be successful if people can depend on it, like every 20 or 30 minutes. I'm not saying 15 minutes necessarily.
No, agreed. Yeah, agreed. I understand the point. It's frequency. It's the frequency of service that matters, whether it's a bus or whether it's a train.
Right.
I get that.
Right.
But I know I've been participating in the discussions of the Coastal Link going back to 2008, and I can tell you that I've never heard 15-minute lead times on things being discussed. I think it would have generated a substantially higher level of opposition if that had ever come out earlier on in the planning stages. So interesting that's the.
Well, I feel the commission should be aware of what's going on.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I don't want there to be any surprises, but I do want you to understand the options that have been put on the table, and they're all very interesting. But everyone has competing interests. The only interest that I have for our city is that we have commuter rail and that it doesn't interfere with the infrastructure that we already have, which is the east-west corridors. Already that they get jammed up with the existing train service. And part of this discussion, by the way, is also trying to encourage the freight line to go through the tunnel. That's the other key component. And there's been discussion about building the tunnel wide enough to accommodate freight. I think it's 26 feet wide as opposed to 22 feet wide, so it's not a big difference. And anyway,
would it have to start by like Pompano to get there? I mean, if you look at the freight trains, they're kind of long. They got to build up some headwind. I mean, I read The Little Engine That Could when I was a kid, and getting up that.
It's a 1.5% gradient in order to accommodate freight versus, I think, Greg, what is it, 2.5%?
Yeah, it's 2.5 to 1.5, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, this is a very important conversation that perhaps we could bring at a future conference so that we can bring all the details of what we know. And again, we just concluded a third report that brings about a more comprehensive outlook of what we're facing, right? When you all have to make that decision. Also, we're very proud to inform the commission that we've received notification from USDOT that we are a finalist for grant funding in the amount of $974,000, so that we can explore this further. And so, as finalists, we're just right now getting additional details, and certainly this grant money will help us understand how the commuter rail can cross via tunnel and may improve communities, business access, and also safety and economic development. So that's what's going on. Also, I'll be speaking tomorrow at the Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, Real Estate Construction Council, on different tools and opportunities that we have as a city for growth and business growth. I've also been invited by CDW and NBC6 because it's Hispanic Heritage Month. They would like to spotlight some of the things that we've been doing, and because I'm Hispanic, they want to talk about economic development in the city. And I am very happy to report that I just signed the Kaplan deal. So it just pending is the mayor's signature. And
what was this memo then from Mr. Spence about then?
Well, he will talk about that, but that concludes my report.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, wait, he's not done yet.
As former Mayor Seiler used to say, "Do not snatch victory from the defeat from the jaws of defeat."
Not at all, but so I sent you all a memo updating you on the lease agreement for the temporary police headquarters over at Kaplan. There was it's a follow-up to your meeting of September 13th, in which the City Commission held a special meeting at which the mayor negotiated an additional term with regards to property taxes, agreeing that the city will pay its proportionate share of taxes due with a reduction of $1.25 per square feet. In that memo, I included the actual terms that we've included in that lease agreement that is intended to capture what I believe the intent of the commission was when they approved that amendment and to be included into the agreement. I just wanted to make sure that is consistent with what the City Commission has directed. The calculation of the 48.07% comes up to about $188,907.76. The reduction of the $1.25 would be about $59,502.50, with the taxes due, if taxes are levied, is estimated to be about $129,405.26. So what I wanted to do by the intent of the memorandum was to make sure that the language that we put into the agreement was consistent with the direction that the commission gave us on September the 13th.
So, Dwayne, I know what I intended and what we all discussed, but I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding about one aspect of it. On page 3 of your memorandum, in the highlighted section, it says, while the property is currently tax exempt, at no time shall tenant be responsible to the landlord or any third parties for any real estate taxes, penalties, or interest that may be due for any period prior to January 1st, 2024. Now, taxes are not due until the following March. They can be discounted from November. So I just want to make sure that when we say due, we mean accrued, due and accrued, because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that we've raised that concern, and that is consistent with the understanding of what that provision is meant to convey.
Okay, so even though taxes are assessed against the property, and we're not going to pay for anything prior to January 1st, 2024, that tax bill for 2023 doesn't come due until March of 2024. So we still are not responsible for that prior tax year. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Does that
And
conclude
so,
your report?
Mayor, I just wanted to ask Dwayne, while you're still on that in that paragraph, if you just go a little bit below that, I just want to make sure, because it talks then about proportionate share of operating expenses shared with adjacent building 1525. Are we actually going to be paying for anything that's shared with adjacent building 1525?
There is a calculation that is in the prior paragraph, also highlighted, that speaks to the way that is determined. So it states, and that's subsection C. So at the bottom of page 2, you'll see that language. In addition to the tenant's obligation to pay its proportionate share of operating expenses related to 1515, it's also liable for its proportionate share of property expenses that are allocated and attributed to 1515. Landlord on an ongoing basis will identify and allocate these property expenses between the two buildings based on a formula, the numerator of which is the total square footage of the building, and the denominator of which is the combined square footage of both buildings multiplied by the common operating expenses attributed to both buildings. So both buildings are adjacent, and there are certain expenses that they pay for example, one vendor to do like landscaping. So they first, using this formula, attribute a portion of that cost to 1515, and then our 48.07% from that.
Okay, and then I just had
So
one.
they're separated out.
They're separated out, and
They
it'll
are.
be proportionate based on our occupancy
Right.
of just the 15 building, correct?
That's correct.
So, okay, I just want to look at, I didn't get a chance to really thoroughly review this, but there was a section here that you wrote. I'm sorry. Okay, so if you look at, I guess this is page 3 of 4, the last paragraph. It says, lease provides that the leasee agrees to pay all ad valorem property taxes, sales and use taxes, assessments imposed upon and being the liability of the lessee and arising out of this lease agreement. This covenant remains in effect. By agreeing to the proposed terms in the police lease as outlined above, the City Commission, in essence, agrees to waive this provision for the term of the lease as it relates to the city's 48.07% share. Can you just clarify that a little bit when you talk about that we're waiving this provision for the term of the lease? What are we actually waiving, and to whose benefit?
So as property owners, as you are aware, the property is owned by the city and leased to Cypress West by virtue of an assignment of a prior lease. The section that you just quoted is out of that prior lease that I'm referring to in this document as the 1998 lease, and it provides that the leasee is obligated to pay all ad valorem taxes, sale taxes, and so forth, which does not obligate the city in any way to pay these taxes. So as subtenant, the city is now agreeing to pay taxes. And by the way, we've put into the lease agreement a novation clause that prevents, by operation of law, from the sublease being considered the new lease and the deal. But what I'm pointing to is that obviously we're not abiding by the 1998 lease provision with regards to paying taxes because we're agreeing to pay the taxes, so we are waiving it for the period of time in which we are the subtenant pursuant to the lease agreement that was executed today.
And is that, in your opinion, customary for a government to agree to waive that, in essence then carrying property taxes on a property that it already owns? I mean, again, I'm just going to reiterate that I find this highly unusual and not what I would expect other cities to do, but we are saying, okay, we're going to waive it and we're going to pay property taxes when typically that's not what a city does.
I do not know if it's customary or not in the context of a government. So I can't answer that question.
Okay, but we are, regardless, we're waiving it because we've agreed to pay. If they are assessed, we are agreeing to pay.
Well,
property.
we're not obligated to pay under the 1998 lease.
Correct. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear to everybody. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Sure, thank you. And that concludes
Okay.
my remark, besides saying a good job to the selection committee, and we look forward to a expeditious interview. And
Yes, we do. Can't come fast enough. City manager, I just have one question. Who is going to actually be monitoring? There's a lot of calculations with this 2-year lease agreement going forward with 1515. I want to know, how are we monitoring? How are we checking the math that we're going to get from the landlord? Who is actually going to be really going through this with a fine-tooth comb in terms of the proportionate share of the operating expenses, taxes, separating 1515 from 1525? Who is going to be responsible for really staying on top of this for the next 2 years?
Here we have.
It better be a crack team.
So the agreement's going to be translated into a purchase order that's going to be allocated with specific funding as dictated by the agreement. If for any reason that number changes, we need to come back to the table, and if needed to change, we certainly need to bring that to your attention as a board.
And before you signed it, I'm asking that, did we have folks that looked at what was the original lease and then how we changed it at our last special meeting, and just to make sure that everything is exactly the way we think it should be, so there are no surprises in the next 2 years? I mean, 0 surprises.
And that is why you all approved that on Wednesday, and we needed to make sure all that was vetted. And I just want to credit Ms. Angela Salmon, because she has been on it along with Susan Grant, making sure that, through everything, that everything was at par with the agreement that you all settled here.
Okay.
And
Thank
Lynn
you.
Solomon, thank you.
Thank you very
Lynn
much.
Solomon.
Thank you very much.
Okay, is there any further business for the conference meeting?
Just one thing,
Yes.
just to end on a great high note. On the 15th, the fire rescue class of 2302 cadet graduation. There was 16 cadets that graduated.
Wonderful.
And it was held at the YMCA at the Black Box Theater, and it was amazing ceremony. And I wanted to share that. And I think that's a great note to close
It
this
is,
meeting
and
on.
we appreciate all their commitment to service our community, and it's really a great thing. And you've been busy the last couple of weeks. Okay, the conference meeting is now concluded. Why don't we go into the CRA board meeting? Mr.
Please
Clerk?
stand for like 1 minute. I don't want anybody getting blood clots in this over here. Just like a
We'll take a 5-minute break.
1 minute. You don't have to just stand right in front of your chair. You don't have to.
I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. I did legs yesterday. We have is this the 7th inning stretch? He needs to grab a Snickers? Okay. All right. Okay, let us begin the CRA board meeting. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Herbst?
Present.
Commissioner Glassman?
Here.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman?
Here.
Commissioner Sturman?
Here.
Chair Trentalis?
Here. Let's go to the agenda. Hello.
What's wrong?
Well, I'll just use the paper one.
The blue one.
Okay. Okay, we have M1, a motion approving minutes for the August 22nd, 2023 CRA board meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So, second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis?
Yes, and M1 is approved. M2, a motion approving the transfer of property of 515 Northwest 15th Avenue from the Fort Lauderdale Community Redevelopment Agency to the City of Fort Lauderdale for public purpose. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? There being none, would someone like to move the item?
So moved.
Been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis?
Yes, and M2 is approved. Is there any further business of the CRA board?
None.
There's none. Meeting adjourned. See you all at 6 o'clock.